Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen, and thank you for joining me for another journey into the world of shinobi. Before we begin, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who listens, supports the channel, and enjoys these stories. Today's story is part 4 of Lone Wolf. What if Naruto Uzumaki walked a darker path, not out of hatred, but out of resolve? After bringing Sasuke back, Naruto continues to grow stronger as a shinobi of Konoha. But words spoken in anger leave a deeper mark than any blade. Determined to prove himself not with words, but with actions, Naruto accepts a path few shinobi ever walk. The path of the ANBU. Behind a mask and under the codename Black Wolf, Naruto becomes something entirely new, a silent protector of the hidden leaf. A shadow in the night. A weapon for the village he still swore to protect. And soon, the name Black Wolf of Konoha will become legend. Lemon's warning. This story contains lemon scenes for mature audiences. This is a fan-made story inspired by the world of Naruto. All characters in the original universe belong to their respective creators. This narration is created for entertainment purposes as part of a transformative storytelling experience. The story itself was written by Anime Enthusiast, and full credit goes to the original author. If you would like to read the original version, the link to the story is included in the video description below. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 18: The Rain. The hospital's sublevel was a place that Jiraiya never thought he would be in his lifetime. The truth was that the smell sickened the Sannin to his very core. True, he witnessed a lot of death in his shinobi life, but never before he entered a morgue. He knew that his assignment was important, though, so he would have to suck it up and do what was asked of him. Because of the Yondaime's death, the only one qualified to understand just any type of seal and its function was Jiraiya. True, the pervert wanted Naruto to receive his tutelage regarding Fuinjutsu, but Jiraiya couldn't just simply reach him and force the information into his brain. Like the Yondaime did back then, Naruto would have to ask for the subject to be taught, otherwise it would be worthless. Naruto wouldn't appreciate the art and eventually he would forget such knowledge as not being worth his trouble. Wondering about his student, Jiraiya was actually proud of the damn brat. Joining the ANBU at 16 was outstanding and Naruto was quickly becoming one of the strongest ninjas in Konoha. Sure, both Kakashi and Itachi beat Naruto by joining the ANBU forces on their 12th birthday, but Kakashi's timeline was in the midst of war, so there was a necessity for promoting ninjas and Itachi. Well, Itachi was a genius. Getting out of the elevator, Jiraiya started feeling nauseous as the smell filled his lungs. Tsunade mentioned that there were some masks located on a room next to the elevator for those who wouldn't stand the intoxicating smell of the dead. It didn't take long until he reached the room and found the black breathing mask that happened to filter the intoxicating air and make it breathable. Trying to control his breathing now, Jiraiya almost choked, but his breathing soon reached normality. Looking up, he found directions to the room he needed to go and followed them. Soon, he knocked on the door and one medic nin opened. Jiraiya-sama. Tsunade-sama told us you'd come here to check on Hoshikage Kisami's corpse. We're already prepared his body for your analysis. Please right this way, said the medic nin in charge of the room, to which Jiraiya nodded and followed the man. Actually, I'm not here to take a look at that fish's body. I'm here for the ring that he wore on his right hand, explained Jiraiya, before seeing the man stopping and looking back at the Sannin. All his personal items were stored with his body, so if he wore by the time he died, then sure the ring is here, stated the medic nin, before turning to the door in front of him and began to press a certain digit sequence. After he finished, they heard the sound of a lock opening before the medic nin turned the doorknob. When Jiraiya entered the room, he looked at the blue corpse in front of him as he wondered about life itself. The man was considered an S-ranked criminal, wanted for trying to murder the Mist Daimyo along with aiding in the Mist Civil War. Now seeing him reduced to just a corpse, Jiraiya couldn't help but wonder if every evil caused by this man was worth it in the end. It didn't matter if he was the enemy or not, seeing someone throw his or her life away for evil didn't deserve respect, but pity. His possessions are located at that metal plate next to his body and I believe there is the ring you're looking for, Jiraiya-sama. I'll be on the next room if you need me. Okay, said the medic nin, to which Jiraiya nodded and picked up the ring before looking at its kanji. The symbol engraved in it didn't tell Jiraiya much, but he knew that Fuinjutsu techniques oftentimes required more than one seal to be effective, quite like the 5-barrier sealing technique that protected the cave's entrance when Naruto went to retrieve Gaara from Akatsuki. So, his mind began to process the information and search for clues that would aid him in his research for the technique responsible of sealing the Biju's power. At the gates, looking at the village for the first time since her departure, she couldn't help but feel nostalgic. Some would consider 2 months a very short time to feel this way, but Haruno Sakura didn't care. Konoha was her home and she never spent so much time outside the village, except on her Chunin exams in Kumo, which actually took a month and a half. This time, she had a medic field mission on a village a few miles away from Konoha, which was to establish a new hospital for the villagers. At first, she tried reasoning with the Hokage about her doing this mission, but in the end, it was safe to say she would thank Tsunade for all eternity for doing this to her. Upon arriving at the village, Sakura immediately forgot about everything in the past and focused only on working throughout her 2-month mission. The hospital was about done and people came pretty much every day for either a normal checkup or to treat a heavy wound or, even, some severe surgery. After a month, Sakura was considered the village's savior as she was the one responsible, along with an elder doctor in town, for re-establishing the village's hospital. She had to admit she felt good upon hearing the villagers thanking her and couldn't imagine her doing anything different in the future. Now, because of the end of her mission, she now would return to her home village and report to the Hokage, but she wouldn't be going alone. "Sakura-chan, let's get going. I'm eager to meet Lady Tsunade and get to know about her medical knowledge," said a guy about her size, black hair and wearing some formal clothing. The pink-haired girl smiled at the guy's enthusiasm and nodded, before the two walked inside the village while holding hands. "Hikushi-kun, I know you're eager to see the Hokage, but it's been a while since I've been here. I wanted to look around a bit," stated Sakura, earning an understanding nod from Hikushi. Another reason why Sakura would need to thank Tsunade was his new boyfriend Taiki. He is, actually, the elder doctor's son and, because of this, he and Sakura ended up spending quite a lot of time together. Hakashi's dream was to become the best doctor in the world and to be able to help as much people as possible, so it wasn't hard for Sakura to fall for the guy. Of course, the physical attributes were appealing as well, but ever since Sasuke rejected her that day, surely the girl wouldn't mind taking a look at personalities instead of just looks. Hikushi asked Sakura, sometime, about what's like to work under the best medic in all the elemental nations and told that he wanted to study under her knowledge, perhaps, even becoming a doctor at the Konoha Public Hospital. Some would say that it was better for him to stay with his father helping the villagers, but one of Sakura's achievements was to select a very competent staff of doctors and nurses to work under Hakashi's father, so it wasn't necessary for him to be there at the moment. Of course, if the need arose, in the future, he would go without even thinking, but for now, he would work hard under Tsunade's teachings. Back to Sakura, she was looking around the village and smiling upon seeing some children playing and women gossiping. A normal life, Sakura concluded. While on her mission, Sakura began to wonder how different her life would be if she dedicated full time into being a medic. She could settle for teaching aspiring medic nins and work full time at the hospital. It was surprising how in 2 months' time, she could change everything she ever believed and even settle for working full time at the hospital, instead of going on missions. Sakura wondered what her Taiko's reaction would be once she came with the request. If Sakura knew anything about the Hokage, it was that the woman would be pissed if she knew her time was wasted, and certainly, Sakura didn't want to be in the receiving end of such frustration. Nevertheless, this was a dream of hers and she wanted to do it, even if her master disapproved. Just as Sakura was about to take another step, she looked up to see Ino looking at her, before greeting the pink-haired Chunin with the normal respect, but still some cold towards her. Sakura couldn't help but look down in shame since she remembered how she used to treat everyone and sighed. "Hello Ino, how's everything?" said Sakura in a normal, yet down tune to which Ino picked up in an instant. This Sakura was different, she could tell. Normally, Sakura wouldn't behave like this, and the Yamanaka wondered if something happened on her mission. "So Sakura, I heard that you went on a 2-month mission, how was it? And who is the man standing next to you?" asked Ino as she pointed to Hikushi. However, she managed to see a faint blushing from Sakura and wondered if something was going on. "Well, this is Hikushi-kun and he came with me to work at the Konoha hospital, and boyfriend and girlfriend," stammered Sakura, not even knowing why she did so. Or perhaps she knew, as she kind of owed Ino for being such a bitch before. Ino, on the other side, was now sure something happened on this mission, for 3 reasons. First, Sakura wasn't behaving like a bitch. Second, she wasn't fawning on Sasuke, and third, she was dating someone else, a civilian no less. The Yamanaka didn't think ill of civilians because they weren't ninjas, but she knew the difference in ideals between the two. She wondered how a civilian would understand the life of a shinobi and vice versa. It didn't just work, period. Ino was, however, caught by surprise when the man next to Sakura approached her and showed his hand as if he was about to greet her. "Good afternoon, Ino-san, it's finally nice to meet you. Sakura told me a lot about you and that you're also a medic nin," smiled Hakushi, earning a smile in return from Ino as she greeted him back. Seeing that they were near a small cafe, Ino invited them for a cup of coffee while they could catch up on things and maybe get to know the new Sakura better. Of course, she wouldn't trust her right away, but at least giving her the opportunity to start all over wasn't a bad idea. It wasn't long until the 3 of them began talking. Well, Ino was just listening since both Sakura and Hakushi had a lot to tell about Sakura's 2-month mission towards the man's village. She learned about Sakura's achievements and that the village now contained a special clinic for wounded shinobi to attend to in case of poisons and/or chakra-related diseases. Hakushi explained that without Sakura, the hospital would have taken nearly a year to be fully operational and people wouldn't receive a proper care, to which Sakura began to blush at the remark. While Hakushi was talking, Ino couldn't help but see a changed Sakura in front of her. Even though Ino and Sakura were friends, Sakura always had that air of false superiority and, more often than not, she would boss everyone around. Now, though, Sakura was different. She didn't correct anything that came out of Hakushi's mouth and even smiled when Hakushi explained a rather moving event when Sakura managed to save an old lady after she was infected with poison. After the new couple stopped talking, Ino began to tell Sakura what happened since she left. Of course, she told about how well Shikamaru is doing as an ANBU and getting to tell her about some of his exploits. It didn't take long for them to break, since Sakura had to report to the Hokage about her mission success, so they parted ways. Hakushi was saying how nice it was to meet Sakura's friend, but one question he did answer that surprised Sakura. "Tell me, Sakura-chan, I noticed that Ino-san gave you glances from time to time. I thought you two were friends?" asked Hakushi, before hearing a sigh in dismay from the pink-haired medic. "Well, we were best friends all right, but some events created some distance between us. As I grew up under Tsunade-sama's teachings, I became kind of bossy with people, so it's safe to say I didn't leave the village on the best of terms. But I've changed now and I hope that Ino and I can be friends again. I remember when we were kids, that we were inseparable and I'd like to recuperate that type of friendship with her," explained Sakura, as they walked inside the Hokage tower. Going upstairs, she and her boyfriend were in front of the Hokage's office, just waiting for Sakura to knock before entering. But for some unknown reason, she just stared at the door. She wondered if the Hokage sent her away because of her bossy attitude towards people. Even if she acknowledged said behavior, it didn't felt good to know that Tsunade was trying to get rid of her just like that. Looking up once more, she decided to face it and knocked on the door, thus getting authorization to enter. "Greetings, Tsunade-sama. I recently came back from my mission," said Sakura as she and Hakushi entered the office. "Ah, Sakura, come in please. It's nice to see that you're safe. So report," asked Tsunade side with Shizune on the room. "After arriving, I made contact with the village's head doctor and we established the plans needed to hire some staff and acquire the necessary medication for the hospital. In 2 weeks, the new hospital was up and running with half the staff needed and a few medical supplies on the way. Within a month, the civilian hospital was fully operational, thus receiving a vast number of wounded and even some scheduled checkups every now and then. The ninja hospital took a while longer to finish, because some of the staff needed additional training on some basic medic techniques. Overall, in 2 months, both hospitals are fully operational and both ninja and civilians are attending them," reported Sakura, earning a satisfying nod from the blonde Hokage. She couldn't help but smile, though, as the old Sakura would never give credit to other than herself and even her expression was lighter than before. She assumed Shizune's idea came through quite nicely. "Good job, Sakura, and I trust that you are Hakushi-san. Your father told great things about you. He asked me to give you a position in our hospital and I accepted. It's tough to find good medics this time around, said Tsunade, earning a nod from Hakushi. I appreciate it, Tsunade-sama. I didn't know my father asked you already. I was hoping to come here myself, but I guess he beat me, right? Laughed Hakushi, earning a smile in recognition from Tsunade, before she looked at Sakura. The girl was blushing upon looking at him, or she was just delusional. Upon looking at Shizune, she smiled and nodded, knowing what the Hokage was thinking. Excuse me, Tsunade-sama, asked Sakura, earning the Hokage's attention before she continued. I was hoping to ask you about something? What is it? Well, throughout my mission, I was able to dedicate full attention at the hospital, and in time, I had an epiphany of sorts. I like taking care of people rather than hurting them, which is why I wanted to ask if I could be full time at the hospital instead of being on the field and possibly teach aspiring the next generation to be a medic nin. I know you trained me and I'm grateful for everything, but I want to use this training at the hospital, said Sakura, lowering her head as in expecting the shouting that was soon to initiate, but instead all she heard was laughter. Sakura, I've seen this mission did wonders for you, my dear, and I bet this young man next to you did as well. So, you want to be at the hospital, then, I see. I'll grant your request, and I want to say I'm proud of you, Sakura, said Tsunade, before seeing Sakura look at her with wide eyes, since she never got to hear such praise before. Medical ninjutsu was created to save and not to harm people. Only a true medic nin would choose what you did, and for that, I'm proud of your growth. Shizune will take care of the papers and we'll talk about the medic nin school some other time. Now why don't you show Hakushi-san his new home and we'll see about an apartment for him later, said Tsunade, before seeing the two bowing in respect and leave. She changed a lot, didn't she? Asked Shizune, earning a smiling nod from Tsunade. With Naruto. After leaving the village straight towards Fang Country, Naruto and his team were now leaving Fire Country. Being a three-man team, the formation wasn't that hard to make, but Naruto was doing a nice job leading an ANBU level mission. He positioned Shino to be last because of his scouting abilities, while he and Shikamaru would be in front to scout ahead. Shino was using his Kakaichu bugs to alert them of any hostile intent nearby, so that they could travel faster without needing to worry about incoming enemies. Their mission involved two parts. The first was to track the missing nins that stole the documentation and then engage in combat. Tsunade wasn't clear as to what they should do about the missing nins, so both Naruto and Shikamaru agreed that were a threat that needed to be dealt with after retrieving the scrolls. Looking back, he asked Shino to report their status so far. My Kakaichu didn't sense evil presences around and up front as well. Our path is clear for the moment, said Shino, earning a nod from Naruto, who, then, focused some chakra on his feet and increased the pace. ANBU missions were very different than normal missions. While traveling, they couldn't afford to either rest or proceed at a slow pace. Both Shikamaru and Shino knew this, and while the bug user followed Naruto's speed, Shikamaru muttered his favorite word since he had to use a great deal of chakra to just cope with Naruto's speed. Black Wolf Taiko, how much time until we reach the client's house? Asked Shikamaru, after reaching the blonde. Naruto, though, looked at Shikamaru for a while, wondering why his longtime friend was addressing him with such respect, which would be normally given to those at least with double the experience in battle than him. Naruto ignored it, though, in favor of asking later. We are close now, the client's mansion is a few miles away from here, we'll be there in 5. Reported Naruto, earning a nod from Shikamaru, as the trio continued the fast pace towards their mission. So what's the plan after we arrive? Asked Shikamaru. The missions file didn't give us a thorough description of the document or its contents, so we'll have to ask our client to better explain it to us. After that, we'll begin the investigations to find the ones who stole said document. I expect this phase to last close to a day, before one of us manages to find a major lead on our suspects. That will be outlined for now, I'm afraid. In order for us to devise a battle formation, we need to understand the enemy's capabilities and their numbers first, explained Naruto, earning a nod in understanding from Shikamaru and Shino. Now, before we arrive, I want to know of you two's abilities when engaging multiple opponents. I know I read your file, but the more information the better, plus the report is written after the battle, meaning that I can't grasp a ninja's full potential from reading a report, asked Naruto, before Shino responded for Shikamaru. After we joined ANBU, we developed a special teamwork strategy that consisted of shadow binding and my Kakaichu draining their chakra. After sucking as much as possible of the enemy's chakra, we change into long-range elemental attacks to eliminate a large quantity of the enemy's forces. The rest, we engage in plain taijutsu, kenjutsu. As to our abilities, ever since we fought against each other, we trained a lot and managed to improve our element mastery. In conclusion, we can take close to 10 enemies by ourselves, reported Shino, earning a nod from Naruto. Okay, then. After we have a better grasp at our enemies, we'll devise a proper battle plan. In order for your plan to work, we must find a way to include me in it, said Naruto, but was interrupted by Shikamaru. That wouldn't be an issue. In our battle plan, you'd hold the enemies like I use the shadow binding while the bugs suck the enemy's chakra. I would use stronger shadow attacks and eliminate as much as possible, before you choose one of your destructive techniques to take care of the rest. With you, we could probably take on 5 maybe 10 opponents more, said Shikamaru, before he looked forward and noticed that the client's house was appearing in the horizon. With Jiraiya, a bit more than 2 hours passed and Jiraiya haven't progressed one bit with his research. The problem with jutsus that used more than one seal was the huge number of possibilities for its use and finality, and for all the experience he gathered on seals, he couldn't grasp all such possibilities. Taking his eyes off the ring for a second, he chose a different approach. He knew that all the Akatsuki members had these rings and he presumed each of them contained different engravings that would aid in the technique. And while he couldn't possibly know about the other seals, Jiraiya can at least figure out the mechanics behind the technique. Another thing Jiraiya wondered about was why the organization didn't come to Konoha and try to retrieve the ring. If such a technique was only possible with all of them, they wouldn't be resting unless they had all the seals. Let's think for a second. I know that Orochimaru used to be a part of said organization, and even though he left, the organization was still able to do this sealing jutsu, so it means that the more seals, chakra source to use, it's easier to perform the technique. But it is not impossible for them to perform it with fewer members, but they would need a lot more chakra for compensation. So, I guess it's safe to say the technique was created for 10 individuals to perform at the same time. Okay, then, now I must figure out how this technique works, thought Jiraiya out loud. He immediately wrote his findings on the technique on a blank scroll, before looking again at the ring. The next part was to figure out why the need of the ring itself, seeing that the ring wasn't as important as the seal inside it. Jiraiya frowned from lack of knowledge about their members that would help him to figure out the need behind the ring. He didn't know if the finger position was important or if all of them used on the same finger. He needed help from someone that already saw them in order to tell him. I guess I'll have to go to Tsunade and ask her directly. I don't know anyone besides Naruto and Kakashi that saw their members. Wait, Tsunade and the ANBUs engaged Itachi and Kisame. She must know about the ring positions. At Tsunade's office, after explaining his findings so far about the technique, he saw the Hokage cross her arms and close her eyes in retrospect. She had to confess that she didn't bother looking at their hands, since she was more concerned with eliminating them from the face of the earth. But if she managed to remember, Jiraiya's research would improve and he could figure out what he could do to prevent the Kyuubi's extraction, in case Naruto gets captured in the future. She was recalling each step of the fight and even remembered Itachi's prowess with Kaiden jutsus. She remembered seeing the speed behind making hand seals, before suddenly an image froze on Itachi's ring. I remember now. When Itachi was doing hand seals at the time, he finished with the Taurus seal and his ring appeared. It was his right hand wedding finger, I believe. Where was Kisame's? Asked Tsunade. Left wedding finger. If the technique was created to be used by 10 individuals, then there must be 10 rings, each one used in each of the 10 fingers, explained Jiraiya, to which Tsunade frowned, while trying to hold her urge to punch the pervert from stating the obvious, but Jiraiya was a master in finding information, so she waited for his brain to process the information he now possessed. Back to the pervert, he was deep in thought. 10 people, 10 fingers, it must be the position in which the seals must be aligned for the technique to work, he thought. This means, then, that in order for the technique to work, the finger positions must be aligned. So, they could have a Fuinjutsu map of sorts, said Jiraiya until he saw the look in Tsunade's face, not understanding what he said just now, before continuing. A fuinjutsu map is sometimes used when the technique is complex and need a specific position. Most of these situations consist of more than one ninja performing the ritual, kind of like the ones used for the medic nin technique for human tissue reparation. In this case, the members could be positioned in each of the fingers that they represent and all of them focus chakra at the same time. I'm not saying it's how it works, it's just a guess based on what I know of the art. Once the technique is initiated, the 10 chakra sources reach the Jinchuriki, starting the extraction ritual, explained Jiraiya, earning a nod from Tsunade, who managed to imagine the situation. Then what do they use to keep the bijus after the extraction? Scrolls, maybe? Asked Tsunade, earning a nod in the negative from Jiraiya. No, if that was the answer, then Minato wouldn't need to sacrifice his life in order to seal the Kyuubi and he was a true genius. To my knowledge, there isn't a better jail for the biju than the Jinchuriki, so it's possible that what they're using isn't created by humans at all, concluded Jiraiya, earning looks of shock from Tsunade who demanded explanation. Think about it, there were 9 Jinchuriki in all the elemental nations and 9-tailed beasts trapped inside. Do you think that if there was a possibility of sealing a tailed beast inside a scroll, that the villages would prefer to seal inside a baby? I believe I figured out as much as I could here in Konoha. I'll go to my spy network and expand this research worldwide. One of them will be able to give me a lead of what this sealing technique contains, expressed Jiraiya, earning a nod from Tsunade. Okay, then, proceed with caution, I can't afford to lose you now, said Tsunade with no second intentions, other than military, but Jiraiya couldn't help but want to get a rise out of his once teammate. I'm touched with your concern over my well-being, Tsunadeheim. I promise you with all my heart that I'll return to you my love. Joked Jiraiya, but couldn't finish since by the time he said the last word, he was already out of Fire Country, flying from the woman's mighty punch. With Naruto, the team arrived at the client's mansion shortly after seeing it on the horizon and they were now being escorted to the one who hired them. The man's name was Higurashi Kato and he was one of the most trustworthy men inside the Fang Daimyo's castle. So, it didn't take a genius to realize that the missing nin simply felt like stealing some documents from the guy without reason whatsoever. In little time, the ANBU reached a spaced living room before finding a man, who appeared to be Kato, drinking some tea with his eyes closed while he savored the delicate aroma of the green herb. Kato-sama, the ninja from Konoha are here as per requested my lord, said the servant, earning the man's attention. Kato's figure didn't demand respect in any shape of the way. He was short, needed to lose weight and on top of that, he was exhaling a powerful smell, probably from smoking so much. Shino was finding hard to control his insects for causing major chaos inside his body. As he approached, he handed the teacup to the servant and began looking at the ANBU in front of him, with a failed attempt of trying to look at their eyes, because of the mask. Both Naruto and Shikamaru couldn't help but curse the guy for staring so much, but didn't react because of their mission. Well, I'm sure Tsunade-san would send their finest to aid me, since I paid a lot of money to her. Those documents are important and I need them back, said Kato, earning a nod from Naruto who, since he was the leader, stepped up and addressed the client. Kato-san, we assure you that we'll do everything within our power to recover those documents and capture the missing nins. Now, could you perhaps explain to us what we need to know about the documents and, if possible, about the ones who stole it? Asked Naruto, trying to be as polite as possible, since he never had any training in etiquette, aside from some hints given by his girlfriend from time to time. Shino and Shikamaru, though, acknowledged said ability and didn't find any flaws in Naruto's greeting. Since both of them were clan heirs, such rules were practically drilled inside their heads since birth, but since Naruto was an orphan, he had no one to teach him these things. The client looked at the blonde one as in trying to study the group's leader, but couldn't find anything. The man's posture demanded respect, Kato thought, and the way he spoke brought confidence to Kato about his hopes of seeing the documentation. Sure, I can, ninja-san. As you may or may not know, I'm the Director of Commerce and Trading here in Fang Country and as such, I'm privy to contracts and keen documentation regarding the negotiations being held with my country. A few weeks ago, we managed to close a trading deal with Wave Country. However, Wave Country's daimyo Tazuna Dono requested a copy of the contract for his archives. Sadly, though, it was stolen right before I managed to get it, explained Kato, earning a nod from Naruto, while thinking about the people in Wave Country and wondering if the old drunk actually is daimyo now. Okay. Then sir, now why are you suspicious of missing nins from Iwa stealing said contract? Asked Naruto, earning a nod followed by a smile since Kato was just getting there. A couple of weeks ago, a selected group of them caused some small chaos on one of our villages. They called themselves Iwa's Exile. 3 days ago, one of my servants was killed by them with what appeared to be a kunai embedded with a message. Right before the contract was stolen, said Kato, before grabbing the note and giving it to Naruto. Greetings Kato-san, by the time you read this, we'll be pretty much gone from your castle, however we won't be leaving empty-handed. You see, Fang country has spread its trade and commerce throughout the elemental nations and we, the Iwa's Exile, don't like that. We plan to expand our group and for that, money is involved. This contract surely means a lot for your country, so you wouldn't mind giving us a fair amount of money for it, don't you? If you want the contract back, you'll have to give us 3 million ryu in exchange. Also, don't worry about you finding us, just settle the amount with you when we arrive next time. Also, in case you try to hire someone to go against us, be sure not to let us know, unless we'll destroy the contract and everything of its contents. See you soon. After Naruto read it, he gave it to Shikamaru and Shino who began analyzing it. Sir, we'll get right on the case, said Naruto before he and his team left the place and went outside. So what do you think? Asked Naruto to Shikamaru, since he was the mastermind of the team. The message seems legit, but the lack of blood on it is what I'm worried. He said that the message was embedded with a kunai that pierced his servant's back, but there is no blood or even evidence of any in the past, reported Shikamaru. How can we know that this so-called Iwa's Exile even exists? One of the things I did upon getting inside the ANBU forces was to memorize the bingo book and I don't recall reading about this group, commented Shino, to which Naruto nodded with his arms crossed as he processed the information his team gave so far. The story seemed far-fetched, but if the contract exists, then Fang country must want it back somehow. The contract exists, though, and it's missing. What we need to know is do some recon both from the message and from the place the contract was stolen. From there, we can identify the user's method and perhaps know their identities or where did they go. I'll bring in an associate of mine to aid us in these investigation, said Naruto, confusing both his teammates, before they saw him cutting his index finger and making hand seals. Oni Kachiyose no Jutsu, demon summoning jutsu, shouted Naruto before a brown two-tailed fox appeared in front of him. Naruto-sama, how can I be of service? Asked Onmitsu before Naruto explained the entire situation to the investigator fox. During this event, both Shino and Shikamaru were looking at each other, both remembering the same thing. Flashback on. Both Shikamaru and Shino were in front of the ANBU commander's office, being briefed on what it takes to be an ANBU. Congratulations both of you for joining the ANBU forces. We work under the orders of our Hokage and help her to better protect this village even it costs our lives to do so. You are now part of this organization that was responsible for protecting the village during all the great shinobi wars and grant victory to the hidden village and the leaves. Now as members of this prestiged organization, both of you will be entitled to some of the village secrets and both I and the Hokage expects that you keep these information secret for as long as you both shall live. As of right now, I'll be telling you 2 AS ranked secret that I believe is vital for those under my command to know. It revolves around one of our most proud members, codename Black Wolf, said Yamato, before Shino and Shikamaru looked at each other in surprise. They came to know from others about Black Wolf's reputation, but few of them knew his real identity since he never take his mask off even inside the HQ. But both Shino and Shikamaru knew who Black Wolf was. However, they didn't know he had a secret that no one knew about. Both of you were taught that the almighty Kyuubi no Yoko was killed by our Yondaime Hokage but at the cost of his life, right? Asked Yamato, before seeing both nodding. However, that was a cover story in order for our member to have a normal life, at least one as less dangerous as possible. The Kyuubi no Yoko was composed of pure energy, its shape was predefined by how much power stored within him, so it was safe to say that no human could ever hope to kill something based purely on energy. So, the Yondaime Hokage used a Fuinjutsu technique that enabled him to seal off the fox inside a human being. An object wouldn't suffice as the fox would simply escape. It couldn't be just any human being, because the fox would kill him from the inside and escape once more. The best possible choice was to seal the fox inside a born infant, simply because its chakra coils wouldn't be developed yet and he or she could hold the fox's chakra and use it in the future. Explained Yamato, but by the look of pure shock in both Shino and Shikamaru's faces, he didn't need to continue the story. Shikamaru was shocked, since for as long as he knew the blonde, never before he could have known that someone like Naruto could hold such a terrible secret for himself. Shikamaru remembered his father telling about the Kyuubi event and that several Nara members were killed because of the fox, but Shikamaru wasn't mad at this predicament, simply because it happened right after he was born, so his memory had no recollection of what happened. Now wondering about his friend, Shikamaru actually began to respect him even more now. Naruto was the first of their generation to join ANBU and he was considered the dead last of the class. One thing for sure was that Shikamaru now understood just who the real Uzumaki Naruto was. Shino, though shocked, couldn't argue with the logic behind the whole matter. Like with the Nara clan, lots of Aburame members were killed by the Kyuubi, but Naruto's situation was similar to his own, so how could he think any ill of Naruto? The Kyuubi was Naruto as his bugs were to him and aid them in battle. Also, it's not like Naruto asked to receive such burden. They were awakened by Yamato who cleared their throat and addressed them. The reason I'm telling you two this is because from all of us here, you two were present throughout Naruto's life and as such, you two deserve to know the real truth. That doesn't mean, though, that the secret is free to everyone. It still remains a S-ranked secret and if shared with someone who doesn't have the authority to know, will be punished by death. I trust that both of you understand the seriousness of this situation, said Yamato, earning a nods of acknowledgement from the new recruits. Flashback off. As they saw Naruto telling the fox everything they discovered so far, both Shino and Shikamaru both remembered the silent oath they did to follow the blonde in case he ever needed their help. After a while, Naruto got up and addressed his two teammates. I know what you two are thinking and I know that Yamato Taiko told you two about my condition. Now, because of my link, I can summon 5 ninja foxes that can aid me or my team throughout the mission. Now, Onmitsu here is the detective. One look at the contract place and he can detect even the faintest chakra residue. That will help us finding the ones who stolen the document and see if they are indeed Iwa missing nins, said Naruto, before he went back to the house with his fox in tow, but stopped once Shikamaru called him. Taiko, yes we know of your condition and no, we don't think any ill of it. Trust us to see the underneath of the underneath and realize that what you are is not a result of what you'd asked for or really craved for it. This happened without your consent and as such, you shouldn't be condemned for it. We just hope you'll trust us more in the future than you do now, said Shikamaru, earning a nod from Shino who was standing with his arms crossed. Naruto couldn't help but smile behind his mask as he heard his friend's words. Sure, trust wasn't earned so easily these days and Naruto would have half a mind to just place a step back for these two. However, he could not forget that neither Shikamaru nor Shino ever treated him badly in the past nor underestimated his abilities even when people considered him a dead last. Naruto concluded that amongst those he knew, he could have 2 new additions to the ones precious to him. Naruto had few, but precious friends, Kakashi, Iruka, Hawk, Yamato, Bear and now Shikamaru and Shino joined the list. I don't know what the future holds, but for now I can say for sure, that I can trust you two with my burden. Now, let's proceed with the mission since I want to come home as fast as possible, said Naruto, earning nods from Shino and Shikamaru, before entering the house with the fox. Shortly after arriving at the contract room, Onmitsu's eyes changed and he scanned the room for any different source of chakra than the ones present. His nose surely detected 4 different scents, but the smells alone couldn't lead the two-tailed fox anywhere, so the fox changed its approach and tried to scan for chakra residues inside the room. It took a while, but Onmitsu's eyes managed to scan the faint chakra residues and managed to tail them outside the house, before looking at said direction. Naruto-sama, I managed to sense 4 chakra residues going northeast from here. If my senses are correct, they are not so far from here. Shall we follow after them? Asked Onmitsu, before Naruto nodded and turned to his peers. If the message is legit, then they would return here to collect the money. We'll leave some cage bunchins here just in case, but if Onmitsu managed to track them, we won't need to worry about them coming to collect the money, "Let's go," ordered Naruto, before Shikamaru and Shino nodded and followed both Naruto and the fox towards where the battle would now begin. Chapter 19: A Warrior's Desire. It had been a while since Itachi used the Hachibi excuse to flee from the Akatsuki without having to worry about a possible confrontation. His plan was simple, yet complicated at the same time. Tricking the Akatsuki, let alone someone like Zetsu, was nearly impossible. However, the Uchiha knew some aspects of Fuinjutsu linked with the henge technique added with a wide-scale genjutsu to make it seem that a demon attacked him, so as to make it look like it was Itachi lying on the ground all bloodied, but the truth was that Itachi chose a missing nin from Kumo for the experiment. It was successful, though, as the body laid on the ground covered in blood was an exact replica of the elder Uchiha. Being an ANBU before the Uchiha massacre, he got to learn a lot of useful things that aided him in his career. However, now he was counting with the useless things that he was taught, like how to prepare false scenery using some seals and a henge. After taking care of everything, Itachi walked away from the fake body. Itachi never got to take his ANBU attire off before joining the Akatsuki, so without the black robe, he returned to being a ninja from Konoha, except that with a crossed headband. The man knew he had to change his outfit from fear of being easily recognized by people. The problem of being the one responsible for the Uchiha massacre was that the minute he escaped the village, the word spread all around the elemental nations. Itachi was never much fan of diverting attention to himself, even before committing the terrible sin of killing everyone of the Uchiha clan, except for his stupid brother. Of course, just like any Uchiha, Itachi was the #1 rookie of his academy class and had a mob of fangirls chasing him. Soon, he arrived at a small village and looked around a bit. His senses for other ninjas were normal, so he was safe. Wandering around for a while, Itachi managed to find a clothes store where he could ditch the ANBU attire in hopes of getting something inconspicuous. Once inside, he saw that the store was divided in normal civilian clothes and shinobi clothes. Itachi thought it was a good idea to mix the two. Of course, he wanted to hide his appearance, but he also wanted some light material for movement in case Akatsuki learned of his treachery. The shop owner was an old man and he was snoring like crazy, so Itachi just walked through the store looking for something he could wear. He needed first something to hide his face, so he would have to purchase a mask. Also, he needed to find a robe just like the Akatsuki wear, but in a different color. He was wandering around the store until he found one light blue with black stripes all over. Also, Itachi managed to find some light cargo paints and a gray shirt with a high collar that would cover up to Itachi's nose, just like the usual Uchiha blue shirt that both he and Sasuke wore. Gathering everything he needed, Itachi went to the counter and landed his soon-to-be-purchased clothes right in front of the old man with enough noise to wake him. Itachi confessed that he was a bit taken aback when the old man opened his eyes and shouted at him like he was crazy. "What do you want, you fool? Can't you see that I'm taking a nap?" shouted the old geezer. Itachi couldn't help but see the irony in this situation. He, an S-ranked missing nin, killer of the fabled Uchiha clan, being shouted at by an old geezer who probably wouldn't give a shit if Itachi was a ninja or not. "I want to purchase these items from your store. After this I won't bother you and you can go back to your nap," said Itachi, not at all focused on teaching the man not to shout at him. It wasn't that the old Uchiha didn't want to. It was rather the fact that one single mistake could lead the Akatsuki right behind him, and Itachi knew he couldn't take on all of them together, maybe Zetsu, but both Tobi and Pain were the strongest members of the organization and as such, they shouldn't be taken lightly. The old man snorted something about young punks these days lacking respect for the elderly, but Itachi ignored it, all in favor of getting the hell out of this store and be able to rid himself of the ANBU clothing and the crossed headband so as to cut all ties with just about any type of organization that exists. Luckily for Itachi, the man was quick and in minutes, Itachi was walking out of the shop with some shopping bags. He needed to go somewhere where he could change and burn his old attire, and he saw the perfect place, thus speeding things up a bit. In minutes, Itachi was now wearing his new outfit and burned his ANBU attire. Now, it was time for the next part of the plan, and that was finding someone who could heal his eyes for him. The Mangenkyu Sharingan was a remarkable weapon, but with time, the user would lose his ability to see properly, eventually losing his eyesight. One thing was certain, though, that until Itachi managed to find someone to fix his eyes, the Sharingan would not be used. As Itachi began to walk towards no certain destination, He noticed a dango restaurant straight ahead, but instead of thinking of the food, Itachi's sight immediately recognized the one sitting there having some lunch. With Jiraiya. Jiraiya was traveling around the elemental nations in search for more clues regarding the technique responsible for the BJIUUS extraction. The pervert didn't find much information and he didn't like it one bit. Being an information gatherer and one of the best, if something truly annoyed Jiraiya, it was not being able to dig further. Some of his contacts expressed their intelligence, saying that they were aware of a technique like the one Jiraiya was looking, but the truth is that none of them managed to give Jiraiya any more material to work with. Right now, Jiraiya was eating some dango while deep in thought about his investigation. However, he soon stopped cold in his tracks upon looking up only to see one of Konoha's worst enemies staring right at him with that cold look in his eyes. But the weird thing was that he wasn't dressed like last time, and also the scratched forehead protector was now gone from his forehead. "It's been a while, Jiraiya," said Itachi, of course receiving only snarl in response from the Sannin. Jiraiya was cursing his luck, or rather lack of it, by meeting one of the Akatsuki right in front of him, and even worse, the sole possessor of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Jiraiya's shinobi mind was confused, though, after seeing the change in wardrobe and also the fact that Itachi was alone rather than with a partner. Something wasn't right and Jiraiya wanted to know about it. "I'm curious, Itachi-kun, about the change in wardrobe. Surely isn't a conscious crisis we're talking about here?" asked Jiraiya, while fixing eye contact with Itachi, even though it was highly ill-advised to face an Uchiha eye to eye. However, since the Sharingan wasn't active, then Jiraiya had nothing to worry about being casted a genjutsu out of a sudden. Itachi for his part saw the sarcasm in the Sannin's words and snorted. "A shinobi cannot afford to grieve over the past. We have a reduced lifespan as it is, and it's ill-advised to mourn the past actions. It wasn't in my plan for you to see me like this, but I'm here to ask you something, if I may," asked Itachi, before seeing Jiraiya nodding his head as in asking what Itachi wanted. "Ever since we lost Kisame to Konoha ANBU, I'm thinking about the one wearing black wolf mask, and truth be told, he quirked my interest," explained Itachi. Jiraiya, though, managed to control his subtle body movements that would come with realization upon hearing Itachi's words, but inside, the man was cursing the genius Uchiha from being too damn smart. But the fact remained that should Itachi still work with Akatsuki, the only ninja from Konoha who would interest him would be Naruto, not the ANBU Black Wolf, even if they are the same person. Jiraiya didn't open his mouth until Itachi proceeded. "I didn't see the fight that Kisame had since I was busy handling myself against both Kakashi and the Godem Hokage. But still beating Hoshikage Kisame, one of the strongest members of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, require both skills and strength that are peculiar to at least one of Akatsuki's level or even your level. It's my interest to meet this guy and hope to fight him in a duel," said Itachi, before seeing Jiraiya quirk his eyebrow in response to Itachi's strange request. A mere desire to fight someone was a warrior's wish, and certainly no one could say that Itachi was one. "I'm more confused now than when I first saw you with this different outfit. I never expected you to be the warrior type," said Jiraiya, earning a nod from Itachi. "The reason for my actions so far was merely to test how far I've gotten with my skills. Joining Akatsuki and facing Jinchurikis was a way for me to measure my capabilities against much powerful foes, but unfortunately the ones I engaged were either too inexperienced in the shinobi arts or too old to even move accordingly. Now, the black-masked ANBU managed to defeat Kisame and he was an S-rank ninja," explained Itachi, before ordering some dango to the waiter and seating in the same table as Jiraiya while facing him. The pervert for his part wondered about a possible alibi on Itachi's side and chose to answer his doubt concerning this whole situation. "Let me ask you something, considering the level of ninjas that represents Akatsuki, I would imagine that something as treason would be highly frowned upon. Clearly, you can't say that they just let you walk away free of any commitment towards their cause, whatever there is," asked Jiraiya, before Itachi nodded. "You are indeed correct. A member who commits acts of treason will receive a death sentence. However, I don't trust you enough to just tell what happened. Just the fact that you will be the only one who knows I'm alive, as I expect you to keep secret to anyone, is enough," said Itachi, before Jiraiya snorted, since Itachi didn't actually give him any reasons not to tell that he escaped and maybe ruin his plans, whatever that might be. "I'm sorry, Itachi, but what would keep me from spreading the word about you leaving Akatsuki?" Surely, you'd have to grant me something that I can use for the favor of keeping this information. Unless, you plan to kill me right now, because if that's the case, then you could just forfeit. You're strong kid, but not enough to kill a Sannin and be able to hide your tracks, spoke Jiraiya, before seeing Itachi negating the question with his head. He just waited for his dango order to be placed in front of him and for the waiter to leave, before responding. I don't plan to kill you, but rather use you if I may. I still plan to engage against the black masked ANBU, whether you want to or not. But, if you do help me with this, I'll grant you information regarding the organization. However, this deal proposal will only come to fruition if you hold your end of the bargain, explained Itachi, earning another snort from the elder ninja. Itachi was indeed too damn smart and cunning as well. He knew that Jiraiya was gathering any sort of information about Akatsuki and was spreading information to the other hidden villages. The problem with accepting this deal was that he would have to agree in setting Naruto to fight against Itachi, and as such, he could very well capture Naruto and hand him for the Akatsuki. However, if the information that Itachi provides allows Jiraiya to work on a counter-jutsu that would nullify the extraction technique. It was a risk, Jiraiya knew, and a big one if Itachi managed to turn the tables on him. Nevertheless, Jiraiya didn't survive thus far by being an amateur. Before this deal closes, Itachi, I have one condition. Before I agree to settle you on a fight against the ANBU, you must prove that you won't betray me in the end by supplying me with false information. Once I'm satisfied with the information you provides, I'll give you my word that your request will reach the Godem Hokage. Cause after all, because of her position, she needs to know about it, asked Jiraiya, earning a nod from Itachi, who actually accepted the condition. I accept the condition, Jiraiya. So, what do you want to know about the Akatsuki? However, your condition should apply to you as well. If I sense that you're not doing your part, I'll call the whole thing off and cease everything, said Itachi, earning a nod from Jiraiya, before they both shook hands to settle the deal. However, by the look in their faces, it was clear that none trusted each other, but that would change in time, at least Jiraiya hoped so. Sometimes, the enemy becomes the ally, and while said concept wasn't strange to the Sannin, he certainly had reservations about siding with someone as Itachi. With Naruto, unaware of Jiraiya's deal, Naruto and his peers were currently tailing the demon fox Onmitsu, who in turn was tailing the enemy chakra's essence. The fox managed to give the numbers of enemies and much information their chakra could provide to the fox. Naruto, Shikamaru and Shino already knew about their affinities and chakra levels, as well as their numbers. Apparently, there were 5 of them, with 3 Junin level shinobi and 2 Chunin level. All of them were earth-based, but the last piece of information acted as more confirmation than anything else. The information would exist in case one of the group possessed an affinity that wasn't peculiar to Earth country. Also, their chakra levels were considerably high, so in the end, the ANBU group would need a vital strategy to be able to reclaim the contract without them destroying it and then engage in battle with the missing nins, with the odds against them. Onmitsu, once we reach their hideout, we'll stop and oversee a plan I've gathered. We'll need both Tsukai, messenger, and Yurei, spy. For this one, said Naruto, earning a nod from the fox in front of him, until Shikamaru and Shino regrouped. What do you plan to do? Asked Shikamaru, while looking forward to the fox. Once we reach the facility, Onmitsu will locate the contract and point it to us. Just like Onmitsu, I have 4 more foxes at my disposal. Yurei will be the one entering the place and take the contract and give it to Tsukai, who will deliver the contract to our client, thus leaving the fight for us. If all goes well, we'll regroup in order to plan our battle strategy. Don't worry, though, these foxes will get the job done, explained Naruto, earning a nod from Shino and Shikamaru, before they created some distance between each other, so as to cover more ground. As the group moved, Shino's bugs would provide cover for them in case of a setup, so he was the last one, and with Onmitsu in front with his heightened nose and chakra sensors, he could spot any chakra-related trap more than a mile away. It took 5 minutes to reach the place, and the team plus the fox was now hidden behind the dark vegetation that seemed to surround the camp. The camp's location was badly picked, the ANBUs could tell. Sure, they are well hidden because of the vegetation around the place, but should someone find them, the Iwa's exile wouldn't be able to know where the attack comes from or even prepare in advance. The detective fox, in seconds, closed his eyes and used his abilities to feel all 5 presences. The facility involved a group of 4 tents merged together to form a little base of operations, and Onmitsu managed to find the most likely place for the contract to be, since it was being guarded by 2 Junin-level shinobi. After reporting to Naruto, he made the hand seals once more for the Kachiyose, and this time both Urei and Tsukai appeared, before greeting their summoner. "Greetings, Onmitsu already explained it to me. I'm back in a second," said Urei, before focusing chakra to his fur and changing to a color more suited for 100% invisibility, and disappeared from view, surprising both Shikamaru and Shino. Naruto, both, addressed Tsukai regarding his part of the mission. "Tsukai, after Urei returns with the contract, you'll deliver it to our client. I believe Onmitsu already informed you of his appearance and name," asked Naruto, earning a nod from the messenger fox, before turning to see nothing. However, what once was nothing but air now became Urei as he switched to a color that the human eye could see, before handling the contract to Naruto to study. After being satisfied, Naruto gave the contract to Tsukai, who focused chakra to his feet and vanished towards the client's manor. After thanking the foxes and dismissing them, Naruto turned to his ANBU peers in order to organize a plan of attack. The enemy was focused on earth ninjutsu, so apart from Tai and Genjutsu skills, their ninjutsu revolved exclusively on Doten. That left Shikamaru out of the front line, thus being on the defensive with his shadow jutsus. Shino and Naruto had the upper hand because of their Raiden affinity. The plan was simple, which consisted of testing their abilities with physical fighting first. Shikamaru and Shino understood the plan and nodded, before the group vanished from the hiding place and in seconds, appeared right in front of the tent, immediately getting the enemy's attention. One of the Junin, upon seeing the ANBU from Konoha, smirked before turning to scream. "Oi Marushi, tear the contract to shreds. We warned that imbecile that should he contact anyone, the contract will be destroyed and now he'll suffer the consequences," said the man named Ganseki, before hearing Marushi screaming an okay from the back. Ganseki was still smirking, even though a little suspicious since the ones from Konoha were just standing there, not doing anything to stop them from destroying the contract. It only took 2 seconds until the man's partner Marushi appeared screaming that the contract disappeared, before Naruto began speaking. "Here is the deal, missing nins. You surrender yourselves to us and will be handled to Iwa for a much lesser penalty. It's your choice," said Naruto, earning a snort from the leader Ganseki. "What a jackass, you damn well know that going back to Iwa means prison for life. I prefer the other way," smirked Ganseki, before giving the signal for the others to show up. Naruto, though, stopped crossing his arms and reached for his ninjutsu. "When I said a lesser penalty, that meant that you'd at least be able to walk out of here alive, but since you chose not to, I guess you just gave us authorization to kill you folks and just send your heads to the Sushikage on a silver platter. ANBU team, the plan is set. Let's go." "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," said Naruto, before 2 clones appeared next to him, evening the odds. The next thing, Naruto, Shikamaru and Shino attacked the Iwa's exile with straight-out kenjutsu, in ways of testing their skills. Before one of them started to make hand seals for a jutsu, Naruto was already ahead of the man with his unique genjutsu style. The man immediately saw Naruto coming out from the left and he turned to aim the jutsu, however he failed to foresee that he left an opening for the real Naruto to deliver the killing blow to the man's chest. The fight barely started and one of the Chunin was already killed. The clones were dispatched easily by the 2 Junin, but at least Naruto managed to learn that they're taijutsu experts. Shino and Shikamaru fought in straight taijutsu against the other Chunin, but instead of going for the immediate killing like Naruto did, they preferred to play safe. Besides, it seemed that they excelled more in taijutsu than in other areas. The team from Konoha did some backflips and landed on a safe distance away from the enemy, before Naruto ushered a new plan. "Antelope and Beetle, you guys take on the Chunin, leave the Junin to me," said Naruto, to which Shikamaru at first protested, but seeing that Naruto was the leader, his hands were tied in the manner. Immediately, Shino and Shikamaru vanished and so the 2 Chunin as well, thus leaving Naruto to fetch himself against the 2 Junin, who were actually Marushi and Ganseki. "You'll pay for killing our friend ANBU. You may be fast and extremely proficient in genjutsu, but while you managed to fool a Chunin, you can't fool us Junin," said Ganseki, but Naruto only remained in the same fighting pose. In blinding speed, Naruto charged the enemy, once more with the genjutsu, but this time Marushi managed to dispel it immediately after being casted, so genjutsu was out of the picture. Ganseki smiled at his partner before making hand seals for Doden Doryu Dango, Earth Release, Mausoleum Earth Dumpling Jutsu. Seeing the incoming ball of mud, Naruto focused chakra to his feet and dashed to the left while making hand seals for an extremely useful technique and one that the Junin wasn't expecting called Futon Daitapa, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough Jutsu. After sending the immense gust of wind, both Ganseki and Marushi were sent out flying, but Naruto wouldn't let this change go by and he threw some shurikens at the enemy, who were focusing on escaping from the wind and didn't saw the incoming projectiles. Most of them caused damage, followed by a snarling coming from Ganseki, who cursed the ANBU ninja from the dirty blow. Thanking the heavens that the shurikens didn't hit their arms or legs, the two Junin yanked them out from their chest and then attacked Naruto together in full-out taijutsu. Immediately, upon seeing the attack, Naruto got ready for the assault by focusing chakra to his feet, before dashing straight forward in order to halt the enemy's assault. Naruto's speed surprised the Junin as they switched to defensive mode in order to defend from Naruto's incoming kicks. After Ganseki managed to defend Naruto's reverse kick from the left, Marushi tried to aim a strong punch to Naruto's jaw, to which Naruto dodged just in time and jumped for a roundhouse kick aimed for Marushi's chest, but the kick was stopped by Ganseki, who positioned his arm towards defending his partner's open chest. Marushi took the lead and moved for a frontal kick towards disabling Naruto's defense, but Naruto managed to grab the man's leg, before landing a low kick to Marushi's right knee, earning a loud scream from the poor man who couldn't help but fall on the ground and hold his leg in a desperate attempt to stop the pain. Marushi was done for and wouldn't get back up on the fight. However, when Naruto was moving in for the killing blow, Ganseki came for the rescue and landed a straight punch at Naruto's chest, before sending the blonde on the ground. Not one to lose track, Naruto used the momentum and placed his hands on the ground, before flipping his body to stand still. The missing nins from Iwa didn't even see the series of hand seals Naruto was doing, but instead all they could see was what appeared to be a lightning lion opening his mouth, before thousands and thousands of bolts shocked their entire system. With Shikamaru and Shino. After separating from Naruto, Shino and Shikamaru decided to join forces in taking care of the two Chunin in front of them. In fact, their abilities wasn't what one could say above average. Even though they didn't outright kill one of them like Naruto did, Shino and Shikamaru were merely testing the enemy's skills, and to be quite frank, they didn't measure to an ANBU's level of skill. Nevertheless, the first lesson that a ninja must learn once in ANBU is never to underestimate the enemy, be always on guard no matter the circumstances. Do you think he's alright? He is fighting against two Junin-level shinobi? Asked Shino, while staring at the enemy before hearing Shikamaru snort in disbelief at his teammate worrying about Naruto's welfare. Don't worry about him, there isn't a soul in ANBU that don't questions Black Wolf's skills and even spread rumors about him. Plus, he trained with the best, I'm sure he will deal with the Junin in no time. Now, I believe we should worry about these guys and then go assist our leader, explained Shikamaru, earning a nod from Shino, before both vanished and appeared in mid-air, throwing shurikens at the opponents. Immediately grabbing kunai, the ones from Iwa managed to defend themselves from the incoming projectiles. Seeing that the ANBU were still in mid-air, the team from Iwa began making hand seals for Dodendomu, Earth Release, Earth Spear Jutsu. Instantly, 4 spears materialized from the ground and landed in their hands, before they threw at Shino and Shikamaru. Acknowledging the attack, Shikamaru approached Shino and the bug user let out his bugs for the Aburame defensive jutsu. The spears hit the bug wall before vaporizing in thin air. Actually, since Shino's bugs feed themselves on chakra, the spears served as a delicious meal to them. Seeing that the enemy was focusing their attention on Shino's bugs, Shikamaru used his Kage Main no Jutsu, shadow binding technique. And instantly his shadow began to spread along the open field and managed to get a hold on both of the enemy's shadow, without their knowledge, since Shino's bugs were at first representing the bigger treat. However, when they tried to move their bodies, surprise struck them as they saw the shadow beam leaving Shikamaru and reaching their shadows. You two were focusing so much on my comrade's attack that you forgot about me. Now, you can't move and thus you're open for an attack, explained Shikamaru, earning a snarl from the Chunin. Release us this moment, you coward. You Konoha ninjas are all the same with your special bloodlines and stupid tricks, mumbled one of the Chunin, but this time was Shino who spoke. A ninja must be prepared for what lies underneath the underneath. It's not because of our bloodlines that we were able to win this fight, but rather skill and experience to use them effectively. Now, since I believe you know about the Kakaichu bugs and their hunger for chakra, you too will be on their menu. However, both of you could still give up and we will spare your life. It's your choice, asked Shino, before hearing the once silent one, screaming obscenities for both Shino and Shikamaru, but he never could since the bugs attacked the Chunin and sucked them dry of chakra in minutes. After they left and returned to Shino's body, the Chunin's life force was all but sucked by the bugs and without energy, they would be dead. So, only gravity was necessary to send their bodies to the ground. Man, such troublesome waste of chakra. We could, at least, discuss the plan with Naruto beforehand. Beetle, let's head to leader, but first we need to seal these corpses to be later delivered to the Tsuchikage, said Shikamaru, to which Shino nodded, before both of them grabbed a body sealing scroll for each corpse. Afterwards, they vanished only to appear at the end of Naruto's fight when they saw a huge lightning lion opening his mouth and engulfing both Junins, before hearing their screams echoing through the open field. Needless to say, both of them were dead the minute thousands and thousands of bolts raced through their system. Seeing his team returned unscathed, Naruto smiled and turned to address his peers. Good job team, let's head back to the client and see what he has to say about this whole mess, said Naruto, to which Shino and Shikamaru nodded, as they handled their scrolls to Naruto, who in turn looked at them. Maybe next time we can be set up against a more worthy opponent. Let's head back, sighed Naruto, once again earning nods of acknowledgement from Shino and Shikamaru as the group began to jump between trees to get back. Shikamaru, though, couldn't help but want to get a rise at Naruto. Oi Naruto, you could have left at least one Junin with us, you know. The Chunin went out with only one attack. The Junin could at least offer a better challenge, said Shikamaru, before hearing Naruto laugh at Shikamaru's comment. Sorry about that, Shika. I thought that when they managed to break my genjutsu so quickly, that their skills were worth something, but in the end, they weren't much. The next time, if we are set up once more, it will be you guys who get to fight the strongest of them. Deal? Asked Naruto, before hearing Shikamaru mutter the word troublesome and smiled. Shikamaru knew enough not to underestimate ANBU's level missions. He damn well knew that at any moment, one slip occurs and his life ends. At Kato's residence, after the ninjas from ANBU returned to the client's house, Naruto was quite surprised to see a much familiar person talking with their client while showing a satisfied look on his face. As you can see, Tazuna Dono, everything is in order for our business to flourish, said Kato, until the sight of the ANBUs inside his house caught his attention. The man smiled and then turned to Tazuna, who in turn also spotted the three shinobis standing there with their arms crossed. For some unknown reason, the wave daimyo focused his eyes on the one wearing a black mask. Tazuna could see that the man was blonde, which in turn resembled the little kid from so long ago, who saved their village and made it prosper. Kato only smiled before adjusting his black suit and began to explain. "Ah, I see you met the team of shinobi I hired for an errand of mine. Nothing to worry about, since the mission was accomplished, I presume?" asked Kato, earning a nod from Shikamaru, who in turn thanked the heavens for wearing a mask. Shikamaru couldn't help but smile at the client's pathetic attempt of hiding what really happened with the contract, but Shikamaru knew better. As a future heir, he knew that when money is involved, sometimes telling something that would endanger the negotiator's reputation would be better off keeping a secret. Naruto, though, wondered what Tazuna was staring at him for. Of course, he met the old man briefly at the mission towards Wave Country and took care of the shipping magnate Gatu and his band of mercenaries. However, Naruto wasn't the only one there, since his sensei at the time managed to beat the most dangerous adversary. Naruto was caught by surprise when Tazuna addressed him, albeit not by his real name. "Tell me something, black-masked ANBU. A long time a kid of your village managed to help us grow strong. I was wondering if you know about Uzumaki Naruto?" asked Tazuna. Naruto, for his part, felt tempted to simply let go of the mask and say, "Hello there," but he couldn't though. Tazuna, Tsunami, Inari and Haku were one of Naruto's precious people when he was young, and no matter what changed, Naruto would always remember those who treated him nicely in his life. However, an ANBU just couldn't reveal his or her identity, and that was the rule, no exceptions. Sorry Daimyo-sama, but said name brings me no recollection whatsoever. Now, Kato-san, I believe our work here is done, so my team and I will be heading back to our village, said Naruto, to which Kato nodded. Immediately, Naruto turned to leave, but saw that Shikamaru and Shino didn't turn at first, but shortly after, they turned and left the house, towards Konoha. On the way, no words were shared. Naruto chose a strategy position where he could be farther than Shikamaru and Shino, thus managing to cover more angles. That served for two purposes, one professional and one personal. The professional was obviously not falling on a trap. The personal, though, was that Naruto was thinking about the old man once more. Naruto felt the man wanted to say thanks for everything he and Team 7 did for Wave Country, but Naruto was an ANBU, and as such, he had to abide by the ANBU Code of Conduct, which clearly states that no ANBU should reveal his or her identity under penalty of being expelled from the ANBU order and returned to the Junin position. Shikamaru and Shino remained on the rear, looking at their leader up front. They wondered about what the daimyo said about Naruto helping the country to stand once more, and truth be told, they were curious. Also, they could easily feel at the time how much Naruto fought to keep his mask on, instead of revealing his identity. But just like Naruto, everyone who ever passed through the ANBU forces had to make an blood oath to never reveal his or her identity under penalty of being stripped of the rank and become a regular Junin. Do you think we should go talk to him? Asked Shikamaru, before looking at his partner in crime. I'm afraid I'm not the most suitable person for you to ask. My family teaching is purely based on logics, whereas this situation requires someone who's well versed in understanding emotions, explained Shino, earning a sigh in dismay from Shikamaru. How troublesome. You know, you could just say you didn't know, it would be easier, said Shikamaru, but Shino didn't bother to offer a reply to Shikamaru's comment. With Jiraiya. After a while of discussions, each set to different paths, and Jiraiya was heading back to Konoha. Thanks to Itachi, the info regarding the Fuinjutsu was complete. According to Itachi, the technique consisted of their leader summoning a demon statue who held the Biju's aura. The members would then use chakra simultaneously to initiate the extraction technique. For now, that was okay, Jiraiya considered. He placed a condition for Itachi that he would be placed on suspension until Jiraiya could be certain that Itachi wouldn't backstab Konoha and capture Naruto. Now this was a subject that interested the Sannin. Naruto was building an interesting reputation, and even the mighty Uchiha Itachi is interested in fighting the Black Wolf ANBU. Nevertheless, Jiraiya needed to treat this situation carefully, because the consequences might be gigantic. Also, Jiraiya wouldn't even consider trading Naruto's safety in exchange for some secondary information that will only lead to the need of new clues to unravel more information. The pervert knew one thing, though: Tsunade would have to know, and she could very well kill him this time for associating with a S-ranked missing nin who in the past only wanted to capture Naruto. Needless to say, Jiraiya was already fearing the beating he would be about to receive after he drops the nuclear bomb. Chapter 20: A Snake on the Move. It was already morning in Konoha, and the sunlight started greeting the Hokage monument to what could be better described as one of Konoha's postal cards. Normally, just by seeing what a beautiful day it would be, one couldn't help but push all bad thoughts aside and lose himself in the midst of the sight as the sunlight would dance with the trees and lakes of the village. However, there was only one person that didn't feel the need to smile despite the nice day, and that was the village's very leader, Senju Tsunade. Reason? Well, despite having to wake up early for a meeting with the Council of Elders only for it to be cancelled because Homura became sick out of a sudden, that wasn't the reason why Tsunade was angry. In fact, in all her life, there were only a handful of problems that hadn't been caused by the very person in front of her now, to whom the woman blamed pretty much all her problems on, except for her fiancé and brother's death, of course. A few minutes ago, her old teammate and one of the Sannin, Jiraiya, came in with the news of a new ally that would able to help him gather all relevant information about the trapping demon technique in exchange for one simple request. Normally, Tsunade would say yes, without a second thought. The possibility of avoiding the Kyuubi from being captured worth anything in her book. Of course, it would be unless the man that revealed the information wasn't Uchiha Itachi, member of the very organization who's after Naruto for what he carries inside him and of his request to fight Naruto or rather Black Wolf in a duel to see who the strongest shinobi is. And the worst part of this was that her teammate was a joker at heart and she quite expected this to be just another one of his jokes. But his oddly serious face told her otherwise and she could very well envision herself rubbing her temples because of the future headache she would feel. So you're saying that Itachi came to you and bluntly agreed with telling you everything he knows about Akatsuki and he wishes, in exchange for the information, to fight against the ANBU who managed to defeat Hoshikage Kisame, is that correct? Asked Tsunade, before seeing a nod from the one in front of her. You can still start laughing at my face and say that you've caught me. I won't mind, snorted Tsunade, while already rubbing her temples. It isn't a joke, Tsunade-hime. Itachi does not know about the ANBU's identity. From what I could tell, he just wants to test himself against skillful opponents. I've given him another condition which acts like a probation clause of sorts. Until either you or I are satisfied with the information he would give, we won't need to reach the end of our bargain, meaning that Naruto won't have to fight him. We have to think of the bigger picture here, Tsunade. I know that we might be handling Kyuubi on a silver platter to the Akatsuki, but that won't happen unless we have vital information to disrupt their organization at once. Explained Jiraiya until he saw Tsunade place both her hands below her chin in thought while absorbing every word of Jiraiya's explanation. What if your relation with him backfires and he's just doing this to lure his way into the village and manage to capture Naruto? What would you do then? Plus, we have one in our shinobi force who is dying to shove a Chidori up Itachi's ass a couple of times. What would happen if Sasuke had knowledge of this? He'll go ballistic, that's for sure, asked Tsunade, to which Jiraiya frowned in dismay, from not counting the minor traitor into consideration. Jiraiya considered Sasuke to be a traitor, cause in his book, if it wasn't for Naruto beating him half to death and brought him by force, the Uchiha would still be serving under the big traitor Orochimaru. You could declare an S-ranked secret only to be known by us and maybe Naruto, since in the end, he would be fighting Itachi and I guess he deserved to know the real reason, don't you think? Asked Jiraiya, earning a nod from Tsunade, who in turn began to think. Surely, this opportunity was too much to pass by, since they wouldn't be getting information from suspicious sources, rather one of the organization's members himself. But the problem remained, since if she agrees to this then Itachi would have his fight against Naruto, which remains to be her doubt in this manner. Jiraiya, would you grade him able to cope against someone as Itachi? I'm sure as Naruto has become a force to be reckoned with, but to face Itachi is a feat not even Kakashi managed and he has 10 years more of experience? Asked Tsunade, before seeing Jiraiya frown at the question and cross his arms. True, the kid got enormous potential to top Itachi in skills, but indeed experience was something that prevented one from being killed, and certainly Itachi has way more experience. Not to mention that Itachi holds a better Sharingan than Sasuke, and should he use it on Naruto, the results could be catastrophic. You raised a valid point here, Tsunade. Were it another one of the Akatsuki, Naruto would be able to cope well against, but I'm more worried about his further developed Sharingan. Whereas Sasuke could anticipate the opponent's movements, Itachi could use his to damage one's mind, and I don't know how Naruto would take being on the end of a Tsukiyomi. We could talk to Kakashi and see his standpoint in this. After all, not only he has a Sharingan, but he also spars with Naruto from time to time. He could grant us a better explanation of Naruto's skills so far and his position, whether or not Naruto could beat Itachi in a fight, advised Jiraiya, before looking at the Hokage, who in turn nodded her head in approval. I gave his team a day off after the last mission. I'll have to reach him back in his home. Shizune, call Kakashi for me. I need to talk to H. Said Tsunade, but was interrupted once she heard a third voice. You don't need to call me Tsunade-sama. I'm already here, said Kakashi as he was reading his favorite book while in his Junin attire. I happen to sometimes be on top of the Hokage's tower to be lazy. I mean to catch up on my reading. Also, I kind of overheard your discussion a bit. You wanted my opinion on Naruto's skills against Itachi, right? Asked Kakashi, before looking up for a while with a hand on his chin, not at all bothered to see that Tsunade wasn't so pleased to learn that he was hearing everything. Jiraiya for his part couldn't help but smile at how easily one could piss off his old teammate, until he saw the silver-haired shinobi narrow his view towards the Hokage to answer. Naruto has exceeded every single expectations of my own to the point that I believe him to be on par with an Akatsuki member. He managed to overcome every single flaw in his skills and even improved all of them. His ninjutsu is off the charts, tai and kenjutsu as well, and his genjutsu aids him a lot. In fact, he even devised a new fighting style that relies heavily on illusions. However, against the Sharingan it wouldn't be effective. Regarding experience, Naruto is constantly testing himself whether on the mission whether inside his mind, said Kakashi, before seeing the doubted look on the Sanin's face. What do you mean inside his mind, Kakashi? Asked Jiraiya. Kyuubi is a very creative demon, it appears. By using Naruto's memories, he can recreate past enemies and even allies to have a fight against Naruto. For instance, Naruto already fought against Momochi Zabuza and Yamato, for what I heard. The interesting thing is that the enemies each have one tail worth of Kyuubi's power and still Naruto was able to win, meaning he has gained much experience from these fights. I'm pretty sure he already fought against other enemies, but I never thought of asking. Naruto right now borders higher ranked in skills without even relying on Kyuubi's chakra and I'm sure he is S-ranked with one tail's worth of the fox's chakra, said Kakashi, earning a surprised nod from those present, until he spoke once more. Nevertheless, Naruto won't use the fox's chakra from fear of the beast escaping, so he's high A ranked. Well, Naruto's chakra coils will be in constant expansion because of the Kyuubi inside of him, so if he can improve his skills for his fight against Itachi, then he could have a higher chance of success, said Tsunade, earning a nod from Jiraiya, until Kakashi chose to speak. Right now, the only aspect left he needs to work is his experience, Tsunade-sama. I doubt that there is much he needs to improve, rather than learning how to use his known techniques in battle with more efficiency. He trains constantly with me and the rest of the team, but that's not enough. He needs to train with tough shinobi constantly to expand his knowledge of fighting, said Kakashi with his arms still crossed. Tsunade and Jiraiya couldn't help but agree with him. Then, I'll agree with Itachi's request, Jiraiya. However, I'm afraid Naruto will have to make a huge step in his training. There are a couple S-ranked missions stacked, waiting to be assigned and I'll pick one suited for his skills in combat. You're dismissed, Kakashi, said Tsunade, earning a nod from the Junin before he left via Shunshin. With Naruto. Because of his day off, Naruto was found spending time with the one that captured his heart. When Kurenai heard the news of Naruto's vacation, she was ecstatic to the point of planning a great number of activities to do together. She and Naruto already spent a wonderful time inside the shower and in the kitchen, which the woman still had the decency to blush while remembering how she loved feeling him all over the place twice. Now, they were having some lunch at a place that was famous in Konoha for its sushi. Actually, both Kurenai and Naruto decided to change their taste in food, since it was either ramen or dango, and the fact that Naruto tasted sushi for the first time and loved it brought a smile on her face, seeing as now the couple could choose other types of food. So Naruto-kun, tell me, you're about to tell your mission with Shikamaru and Shino, until the waiter interrupted. How was it? Asked Kurenai, while remembering the genjutsu she put the man who didn't want to serve their table because of her boyfriend under. Naruto for his turn nodded. It wasn't so bad, Kure-chan, it was actually the first mission I went as captain. Shikamaru and Shino are both smarter than me in so many ways that I thought they wouldn't agree with my plans, but to my surprise, they did, and even Shikamaru called me Taiko. The mission itself went smoothly as well, while Iwa Shinobi lean more on numbers than skills, hence why we didn't have such a hard time defeating them. Also, this was the first mission I managed to use the foxes that Kyuubi provided me with, explained Naruto, earning a smile from his beloved, in return filling Naruto's heart with warmth as he found that he carved said reaction from the one he loves. Shino told me, though, you encountered one friend from your past, is that right? He said that you couldn't review your identity, so you couldn't greet him, asked Kurenai, earning a sad nod from the blonde. Yes, his name is Tazuna and now the feudal lord of Wave Country. He was part of my first C-ranked mission that turned into an A-ranked one, because of Zabuza's involvement. At the time, Tazuna hired us for his protection, since he was building a bridge that would link Wave Country with Fire Country, thus freeing his land from the power of a businessman called Gatu. Because of our team, Gatu was killed and Tazuna managed to finish the bridge, and from the looks of it, the country is now flourishing with new deals and trades all over the elemental nations. I really wanted to visit his family one day, you know. I've also became good friends with his grandson Inari, said Naruto as he smiled upon seeing some memories flashing before his eyes. Well, maybe if the Hokage grants you another vacation, we can go there and make a visit. I'm sure that this Tazuna person will enjoy seeing you once more and Inari as well, said Kurenai as the waiter arrived, not even bothering to look at Naruto before placing their dish with different types of sushi and sashimi. As they ate in comfortable silence while looking at each other, they didn't see a familiar couple arriving at the restaurant, before stopping right in front of their table. Naruto, Kurenai-sensei, how's going? Asked Shikamaru as he was holding hands with his girlfriend Ino. Hi there Shika, I see you got a day off as well, please join us for lunch, said Naruto, to which the couple nodded and each took a chair, before each duo entered in a conversation. Ino and Kurenai began to talk about a new kimono that Shikamaru's mother gave to her as a present, while Naruto and Shikamaru were engrossed in a shinobi-type conversation regarding their last mission. At the ANBU HQ. It was already late at night and Yamato was busy inside his office at the ANBU HQ handling with a couple of mission reports that needed to be signed. Of course, just like any bureaucratic assignments, he had to deal with a lot of subjects that weren't related to the shinobi way of life, like their division's budget and some disciplinary complaints of 2 ANBU members that chose to fight over the last set of dango available at the restaurant. He now had a newfound respect for the Hokage since she must have faced worse situations to handle. Yamato could only shiver from the thought of dealing with every single ninja inside Konoha, ranging from genin to junin. The man was about to finish everything and go home for the day when a person he never thought to see outside the interrogation chambers walked inside his office. "Hello there Yamato-sama," said Ibiki while bowing in respect for his fellow ANBU commander. "It's good to see you Ibiki-sama. What can I do for the ANBU Black Ops?" asked Yamato as he knew of Ibiki's promotion to commander of a different ANBU division, called the ANBU Black Ops. They were responsible for protecting Konoha from the shadows, with S-ranked missions that only the Hokage herself knew, and should any shinobi be captured, his or her body would burn because of a seal in order to erase any evidence of Konoha's involvement in the matter. Yamato himself worked a few times for said organization, before retiring from it. He could choose to be a full-fledged Junin or return to the regular ANBU, so he chose the latter. "Since my promotion to Chief of the Black Ops, I failed to encounter competent shinobi to perform our missions, but I became rather intrigued about a team of yours and I was hoping to grant them the position," said Ibiki, though Yamato already suspected which team was the man referring to, but he chose to remain silent as Ibiki said it. ANBU Team 5 has an impressive record of successful missions on their hands, and it's composed of highly experienced and skilled shinobi like Hitaki Kakashi and the one that surprised me the most, Uzumaki Naruto. I know that they are amongst your division's finest shinobis, but they caught my interest. What you say?" asked Ibiki, before seeing Yamato think for a while. Black Ops mission are dangerous Ibiki-sama, and risking someone as famous as Kakashi-senpai is not something the Hokage would wish for Konoha. Also, Naruto himself has created a name for himself. I have no problem with transferring this team to your division, but the Hokage must have the final word on this matter," said Yamato, pointing out his opinion to Ibiki, who in turn nodded and turned to leave, but not before saying goodbye to Yamato and scheduling a meeting with the Hokage in order to discuss this change. The next day at the Hokage's office. After arriving at her office, Tsunade grabbed her stack of S-ranked missions to be assigned to her shinobi staff. She was looking for something that could really test Naruto's skills, since he would need the experience for his battle against Itachi. Pausing for a while, she wondered whether or not her decision was the right one, considering the danger of the situation. Itachi is considered an S-ranked shinobi for a very good reason, and for all the experience Naruto has gathered, she doubted that the blonde could win if Itachi fought seriously. Not even wanting to dwell on such a thought, she found one from the stack of missions that was suited for what she intended for Naruto. Apparently, a village located near the border between Wind and Fire Country is being terrorized by a Kumo, a ranked missing nin, although his name and abilities were unknown, since the village has no ninjas whatsoever. At first, she wondered if the information was accurate since no one would have knowledge of ninja ranks, but it's better to send someone and be wrong than send a team of chunin and then having to inform their families because of her bad judgment. The mayor of the village requested assistance of elite shinobi who could deal with the situation and save the village. Normally, she would have sent a couple of Junins to deal with the missing nin, but since this would be a test for Naruto, she will send him alone for the deed. However, she very well knew that sending an ANBU alone is suicide and terribly against the village's policy, no matter if this is a test or not. At the very least, she could send Kakashi in this mission to aid him if possible, but let him fight against the enemy. Smirking at her ingenuity, Tsunade also created one primal objective, and that would be capturing the missing nin instead of killing him. The reason was that Kumo was getting restless ever since they placed Naruto in their bingo book, and from some investigation reports, they've increased the training rhythm of their genins, meaning that they are expecting to building up a sizable army against Konoha. So, by sending one of their missing nins for them to deal with will be served as an act of good faith by the Leaf Village, thus hoping to avoid a major conflict, or at least that's what she hoped. Kumo was and still remains a wild card that shouldn't be left out of sight. They happen to focus on an intermediate term between numbers like Iwa and abilities like Konoha. Pressing the communication button, she called for Shizune. Shizune, create a new S-ranked mission for ANBU member Black Wolf and ANBU member Dog. The prospect is on my desk, and also call them in here in 15 minutes for debriefing, ordered Tsunade from the intercom, earning an "okay" in acknowledgement from her assistant, before the Hokage returned to other mission reports that were stacked on the left side of her table. As he read through the reports, she found one from Sasuke's Chunin team that entailed an infiltration mission next to Iwa territory. Their mission objective was to get in contact with Jiraiya that was hiding there and retrieve some information he had about Iwa's activities. According to the report, the team encountered some Junin-level shinobi, but they were subdued easily and without leaving any traces for the Rock Village to follow towards Konoha. Leave it to Jiraiya to use his toads to vanish with the bodies. Well, at least I don't have to hear the old geezer of a Tsuchikage demanding some form of retribution for the whole thing. Also, the information is not of great importance. Apparently, a new Tsuchikage will be nominated in a couple of months, and there are two worthy candidates. One from the report has the support of the Junin, the other has the council's back, aka a political asshole in my opinion. I don't believe that either one would want to harm us, but it's nice to keep in touch with these sorts of things, thought Tsunade, until she heard the noise of her intercom buzzing. Tsunade-sama, I've already sent the message to Black Wolf and Dog. They are sure to appear any time now, said Shizune, but before Tsunade pressed the button to respond, she saw two different Shunshin techniques in front of her. Before Naruto and Kakashi appeared in front of her, however, she had the decency to sigh in dismay upon seeing the dog-masked ANBU reading that pervert's book. Kakashi, seriously, I thought you'd drop this book once and for all? Asked Tsunade, before seeing Kakashi taking his face, or rather his mask, off the book and close it before placing it inside his kunai pouch. My apologies, Hokage-sama. I just needed to do some catching up, that's all, said Kakashi, though Naruto, sighing in dismay at his sensei's answer, spoke for her as well, so she dismissed and began the briefing. In a megacure, sitting on top of the highest building in a megacure, Pain was downright furious at his predicament. It began with the Sanbi's escape from the statue and then Zetsu's disappearance. The organization leader tried using the astral projection technique to call for Zetsu wherever the man was, but for some reason, Pain couldn't feel his presence, and he now wondered if the man found the three-tailed demon. There is a possibility that Sanbi managed to defeat Zetsu before he had the opportunity to track the monster, or a third party came in and defeated him, which to Pain was highly unlikely. Zetsu was more of a tracker than a fighter, but even so, he was considered an S-ranked missing nin from Kusa, and as such, he wouldn't be finished by just anyone without even communicating with his leader. Now, with Zetsu gone, Pain could only count with Itachi and Tobi, Madara in disguise. Itachi was sent to retrieve the Hachibi, but so far, the man didn't send him any information about his whereabouts, which also infuriated Pain to his very core. The technique responsible for capturing the last-tailed demons required at least two new sources of chakra aside from the still-alive members, meaning that he would have to recruit once more. Also, there is the fact of capturing the tailed demons, since both the Hachibi and the Kyuubi are nowhere in sight. He then concluded in reaching Itachi to see about his whereabouts, so he focused on the ram seal for the inner projection technique and reach Itachi. However, after consecutive tries, he had nothing, just like Zetsu. Pain was beginning to be suspicious about everything. Both Zetsu and Itachi vanished from out of nowhere. Snarling, Pain got up from the statue and set out for a new objective. He would investigate the reasons for Itachi's disappearance and get to the bottom of this mess. With Orochimaru looking at Kabuto's corpse, Orochimaru couldn't help but laugh in excitement because of his final achievement. Since Kabuto was dead, Orochimaru didn't need to worry about the after effects of the Cursed Seal level 3. After bringing Kabuto back from the dead with his Edo Tensei Jutsu, Orochimaru activated his new cursed seal on his body in order to see the results of the experiment. To his surprise and delight, Kabuto managed to use the third level of the cursed seal perfectly. Whether or not it worked because of his regenerative abilities, the Snake Sanin didn't know, but the fact remained that Orochimaru did succeed to create the perfect soldier to do his deeds and for the final kidnapping of Sasuke Uchiha, so that Orochimaru could finally get the Sharingan. As he looked, he noticed that Kabuto was just opening his eyes and facing his master with that creepy smile on his face. "Orochimaru-sama, how may I assist you?" asked the Four-Eyes zombie, earning a snicker from Orochimaru. "Your first order, Kabuto, will be to eliminate the Kyuubi brat once and for all. If I want Sasuke here, that brat will have to be dealt with at once," ordered Orochimaru, earning a nod from Kabuto as he adjusted his glasses, before he heard Orochimaru speak again. "The only problem is that not one of my sources can locate him inside Konoha, which means that you'll have to find him yourself. I won't return until I find him and kill him," said Kabuto before he left the premises towards finding his target, while listening to Orochimaru's never-ending evil laughter echoing through the hallway. With Naruto and Kakashi. After a day of traveling, Naruto and Kakashi were now hidden behind the dense woodland that happened to protect the very village they were going to. Their mission was simple, yet not at the same time. Kakashi explained to Naruto the difference between subduing an enemy and killing an enemy, and to tell the truth, Naruto didn't like it one bit. Subduing the enemy meant that he would have to hold back on his techniques so that he doesn't kill him, but the enemy won't have any problem to go all out on Naruto, which meant the blonde was in heavy disadvantage. Not to mention that Tsunade explained that Kakashi was only here for precautions and that only he would engage the enemy in combat. When being asked if there was a problem, he said nothing. But the fact remained that this was the first time he'd have to hold back against an enemy, and any mistake could prove to be fatal. "This is bullshit," snarled Naruto for no one to hear, but apparently, Kakashi sighed in dismay before turning to his now impetuous student. "Calm down, Naruto, this isn't the first time that a ninja is ordered to subdue an enemy. There are times when killing an enemy can lead to dangerous consequences, so it's in our best interest to avoid it. Now, can you sense some heavy chakra on this whereabouts?" asked Kakashi, earning a nod from Naruto. "Yes, I can. It's weak, but he's probably far from us right now, considering that the request was legit," explained Naruto, to which Kakashi nodded and focused on his senses for a while, before drawing the same conclusion as his student. "Be careful, though. We don't know about his chakra control, he could be disguising it well," advised Kakashi, before the two ANBUs proceeded with care throughout the foliage. Actually, Kakashi already knew that the guy was waiting for them, while crouched behind a big rock, but he would let Naruto acknowledge the man's presence and engage him in battle. Naruto for his turn was going straight for the rock, basing purely on his instinct. Suddenly, he felt a rise in temperature, before his instincts told him to jump, to which he obeyed. He realized, after 1 second, that his instincts proved to be correct, seeing as a huge fireball smashed the rock into tiny pieces and would have hit him head-on, if he remained in the same direction. After the smoke subsided, a sudden shape appeared before his appearance could be seen 100%. The Kumo-slashed insignia was evident on the man's forehead, and his really spiked blonde hair, added by the mad smile on his face, gave every indication of a total lunatic, just wanting to torch everything. Still, seeing a Kumo shinobi with the ability of using Kaiden ninjutsu like this was new, which proved to be quite troublesome to Naruto since he didn't exactly use his second affinity much, rather adapting his fighting style to futon and raiden techniques. So, it appears that the people of this pitiful village managed to reach Konoha's ears. "I'm flattered that those dogs would send a couple of their puppy ANBUs after me. Let's make this quick, I have the whole village to burn," said the man, before falling on a fighting stance. Naruto followed suit, though he realized that his opponent not once tried to shorten the distance between them, meaning that he plans to attack him with long-range attacks. I hate to be a spoilsport on your hobby of burning villages, but I'm afraid you must come with us, willingly or unwillingly, it's your choice, said Naruto, before focusing chakra to his feet and charging his opponent, who in turn did some hand seals and exhaled a number of medium-sized fireballs in hopes of hitting the black-masked ANBU. But Naruto saw those and dodged them easily, while shortening the distance between one another. However, as soon as he was inches away from the opponent, he saw the man doing another set of hand seals, before slamming his hands on the ground for Doden Doryu Juheki, Earth Release, Earth Rampart Jutsu. Just as Naruto did a backflip, the earth in front of him started to lift, thus protecting the missing nin, surprising Naruto. Man, Kaden and Doden. Wonder if he has also Raiden attacks up his sleeve, snorted Naruto while focusing on hidden attacks out of nowhere. He was not disappointed, as a great number of shurikens were sent flying from different directions straight at him. Naruto snorted, because the man didn't pinpoint his location from the attack, but Naruto dodged the incoming shuriken, before jumping up the new terrain that was created, before he saw a stream of fire coming straight at him, before he realized what happened. Doing a sequence of hand seals for Suijin Heki, water release, water barrier jutsu, Naruto jumped backwards as a water stream protected him, while he verified the man's position, but so far nothing. Far from the fight, Kakashi was seeing everything with his Sharingan and noticed the position of the enemy, but he knew why Naruto was having a difficult time. From what he could tell, after using a technique, the missing nin would change his position, while Naruto is defending from his attacks. Right now, he saw Naruto's water barrier protecting him, before the blonde fell behind the landscape created by the enemy. Smart move, Naruto. Now let's see if you can use it to your advantage, thought Kakashi as he saw Naruto hiding behind it to assess his situation. Back to Naruto, he assessed the situation and came up with a plan to at least pinpoint the man's location. Moving his hands to form a familiar position, and immediately 4 Narutos appeared to his side. Suddenly, all 4 of them but the original one vanished, as they moved to attack the enemy. Almost 2 minutes later, Naruto received memories of the enemy a couple of meters to his right. The third memory showed him the same distance but to the north direction. The last one showed the enemy on the left direction, so if the pardon stays the same then the next attack will be Futon Daitapa, wind release, great breakthrough jutsu, said Naruto as he aimed his attack to the direction where the missing nin was and smirked when he heard a couple of screams, before the man was propelled a couple of meters away, before adjusting his body so as fall on his feet. Nevertheless, the innumerous number of cuts on his body proved that he shouldn't take this ANBU too lightly. However, he didn't count for the ANBU to appear right in front of him. You do have a lot of chakra to do a lot of techniques, but I'm not going to lose you out of my sight, said Naruto, before he charged straight at the enemy, aiming for a punch at the man's jaw, only for it to be dodged, before Naruto saw him disappear inside the ground. So, that's how he managed to switch position so quick, thought Naruto as he focused chakra to his feet and increased his speed to impossible heights as he focused on the chakra usage to pinpoint his location. The enemy appeared behind a little tree, but not able to escape Naruto's grasp as he appeared with sparkling hands before landing it on the man's chest, thus sending 1,000 bolts of lightning into the man's core. The man couldn't even scream from the amount of pain, before he passed out. Seconds later, Kakashi appeared and placed 2 fingers on his neck to check a pulse, and he managed to find one. Well, Naruto, it appears you made it. Although sending a high charge of electricity is heavily unadvisable. I'm guessing that since he came from Kumo that he was used to being shocked. Now seal the man's body into one of the body storage seals and then we will leave, said Kakashi before Naruto nodded and sealed the man, before getting up and looking at Kakashi. Sensei, I was wondering about the reason behind this mission, said Naruto, to which Kakashi nodded, though if the mask wasn't there, he would have smiled at his student. Indeed, Naruto should have realized that he was being tested, but for what reason still remained unidentified. Why would the Hokage send us here and only place me as the one fighting the enemy? What was your purpose on this mission? Asked Naruto. Kakashi, for instance, smiled once more, but he could not answer Naruto's question, at least not right now. I was sent here as a backup, Naruto, just in case you couldn't manage to subdue the guy without killing him. Now let's go back to the village, said Kakashi, to which Naruto nodded, before he followed Kakashi towards the village. Just as the two left a couple of trees, The pair moved fast to evade a great number of incoming shurikens that would impale every inch of their skin. After they landed on the ground, in front of them was the enemy. With the Sharingan, Kakashi was assessing the stranger who attacked them, before he grew paled. "No way, I killed him personally, how can he be alive?" thought Kakashi. "Good to see you, Kakashi, it's been a long time since you used that eye on me, hasn't it?" asked Kabuto as he showed his face, earning gasps from both Naruto and Kakashi. Chapter 21 Escaping from Death. Naruto and Kakashi were staring at the man they thought was killed by the very one with the dog mask. The silver-haired Junin thought he was hallucinating, but considering the type of experiments Kabuto and Orochimaru performed, he didn't feel the need to be surprised. Nevertheless, even with his experience, Kakashi was kind of unnerved that his danger sense was bothering him so much. Kabuto couldn't be stronger since the day they fought, now could he? The problem was that whoever apparently brought him back from the dead would have other intentions than simply giving the man a second chance in life. It didn't help that this feeling was familiar to both Kakashi and Naruto, as they always felt it upon being close to someone under the influence of the cursed seal. Naruto for his part was watching Kabuto's unnerving and rather sick-looking smile with a frown. This was the man that caused a lot of trouble to Konoha. Even in death, the man can be a pain in the ass. Watching his partner from the sideline, he was surprised that Kakashi was using sign language to communicate with him. And since Naruto pretty much memorized the signs, he understood what Kakashi wanted to say. According to his partner, Kabuto was still unaware of Naruto's identity, hence why he was addressing exclusively to Kakashi and not both ANBUs. That meant that while fighting, the blonde couldn't afford to use any skills that would alert Kabuto, so no Kage Bunshin and definitely no Rasengan. "I saw you die by own hands, Kabuto, but it seems Orochimaru had other plans for you," commented Kakashi, earning a sinister smile from the snake's second in command. "Indeed you did, Kakashi, however Orochimaru-sama was most displeased with this predicament, hence why he used his technique to bring me from the dead. That means more fun for us, since we could continue from where we stopped and don't think it will be as easy as before, though I was amazed, at the time, that you managed to defeat me in such a brutal manner," smiled Kabuto, before he turned to the other ANBU member in deep contemplation. Kabuto knew never to underestimate a shinobi above the rank of Junin, mostly because the last time he did so, he was dead from a very powerful Raiden attack Kakashi used. Therefore, if this other shinobi was as good or either as experienced as the copy nin, Kabuto would have to be wary of his movements. The stance alone was already unnerving, his trained eyes could tell. It showed nothing but confidence that his skills would be able to land the killing blow. "I've managed to beat you once and I will beat you once more. You should have used this opportunity Orochimaru gave you and live longer. Now your mistake will be your downfall, be prepared," said Kakashi, before he took out his ninjutsu and charged against Kabuto with impressive speed while Naruto was just watching from the sideline. Another aspect of the message was that he would participate in this battle as backup. Kabuto saw the attack coming and evaded when the time came, surprising Kakashi because he was relying on the Sharingan to predict the man's movements. The moment he passed Kabuto, Kakashi slipped a couple meters forward, before focusing chakra to his feet for propulsion. He was facing Kabuto's back because of his movement and was about to land the killing blow, when Kabuto vanished from sight for 1 second, before appearing next to the copy nin, while aiming his chakra scalpels at Kakashi's chest. He would have landed the attack, if he didn't have to dodge a couple of apparently elemental shurikens on the verge of slicing him in several pieces. Doing a major backflip, Kabuto, then, looked at Kakashi's partner and saw him holding the snake hand sign, meaning he was the one behind the attacks. He didn't have much time to ponder the situation, because Kakashi was hot on his tail 1 second later. The Junin did some hand signs, before placing his hands in front of his mouth as he exhaled. Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu, Fire Release, Grand Fireball Jutsu. The incoming fireball, although immense, was nothing Kabuto couldn't dodge just by using his plain agility. However, as he was preparing to evade the incoming attack, he sensed a major shift in the wind, before looking, with wide eyes, that the incoming fireball nearly doubled in size. The man had the decency to curse his luck as he had to channel chakra to his feet in order to escape the attack. He managed to evade in the end, but not at the cost of burning his legs because of it. immediately healing the damage, not because of the pain, which by the way he didn't feel. Kabuto landed on the ground and once more looked at Kakashi's partner for a while. The major shift in wind was not naturally caused, but rather it was chakra-orientated. This, he wasn't expecting at all. Wind users were dangerous, especially in close to middle range, so if the man was far from the battle, that only meant that he was acting as backup for Kakashi. Kakashi saw that Kabuto was focusing on Naruto and took the opportunity to land a powerful kick in the man's chest, thus sending him flying straight towards some trees. He, then, turned to Naruto and smiled at the boy. He understood the meaning behind being Kakashi's backup as he managed to save the copy nin from having his inner organs severed by Kabuto's attack. Also, the occasional power adding to Kakashi's Kaiden techniques proved to be valuable against Kabuto. What troubled him, though, was the fact that Kabuto's different regenerative abilities. He was pretty sure that the improved fireball would turn his legs to crisp, but when he saw it, it was like the attack never happened. Usually, Kakashi would be able to see the damage being healed slowly, but now it was faster. Orochimaru's Edo Tensei, Resurrection to the Impure World technique, was reported by the Black Ops ANBU that witnessed the snake using on the Sandaime Hokage, and they very well saw that even though Sarutobi managed to blow the resurrected bodies of the Nidaime and Shodaime Hokage to smithereens, it would heal over and over, just like Kabuto. It didn't take long for Kabuto to appear in front of Kakashi as he adjusted his glasses so they wouldn't fall off his face. "Nice, Kakashi, just what I expected from someone like you. Although that partner of yours saved your life once already and I have yet to reach my fullest capacity," smiled Kabuto, earning a snarl from Kakashi. Not much could piss him off these days. He participated in the war against Iwa and had to endure a lot of deadly situations. However, what he hated most was the opponent's unpredictability. For some reason, the man in front of him just wouldn't leave this plane of existence, and Kakashi feared that Orochimaru made some modifications to his body. "I don't know what your master had in mind when he brought you back from the dead, Kabuto. But from here on out, I guess I'll have to give 100% on this fight," said Kakashi as he focused more chakra to his feet and charged Kakashi in a speed unheard of, before landing a powerful kick to Kabuto's sternum. But seeing as the man felt no pain, his only hope was to damage the body to the point that the spirit wouldn't be able to maintain itself any longer. The problem was if he would have enough chakra to last until the end? Using speed, Kakashi was waiting for Kabuto to land near him just so he could land a strong punch to the jaw, but he was surprised when Kabuto used the momentum and flipped his body, thus facing Kakashi. He, then, took a regular scalpel from his holster in order to attack the silver-haired Junin, who in turn, already picked up a kunai to parry the blow. Suddenly, the only sounds that people could hear were the number of shifts in the wind and the peculiar sound of metal clashing against metal. Quickly, after defending from Kabuto's attack, Kakashi managed to deliver a reverse kick right on Kabuto's abdomen, sending him straight towards a big rock, before his body collided heavily. Wasting no time at all, Kakashi made some quick hand signs before focusing lightning chakra on his hand. He, then, charged against Kabuto and managed to hit the assassination move directly on Kabuto's heart. Since he saw his hand crossing all the way to the enemy's back, Kakashi relaxed his stance for a short while, but it was long enough for him to realize that it was a fatal mistake as the enemy's hands began glowing purple, showing the chakra scalpels. Because of the short distance, the ANBU wouldn't have time nor space to evade, hence why he focused on one of the simplest techniques in existence, Kawarimi no Jutsu. Kabuto only watched in morbid fascination as Kakashi appeared a few meters away from him. "Congrats, Kakashi, I really thought you'd die in my arms this time," said Kabuto, as he rested his hands on his hip in a mocking stance while Kakashi was positioned and ready to counterattack anything the enemy throws at him. Suddenly, though, the sky became dark and immediately thousands and thousands of lightning emerged, ready to strike Kabuto at any time. Because of the Sharingan, Kakashi remembered this genjutsu and smiled at the chance Naruto was giving him. This time, he would make sure to cut off the enemy's head, while he was occupied with Naruto's technique. Kabuto for his part wondered about the sudden change in the weather, before he adjusted his eyes to the enemy. The man was surprised for a moment, because of the fact that the lightning were passing through Kakashi, like they never existed in the first place. But then he realized it was an illusion and he managed to dodge just in time to avoid Kakashi's kunai from severing his head completely. After jumping back a bit, Kabuto took another look at the other ANBU since he knew Kakashi didn't have the time nor the skills to cast a genjutsu without Kabuto realizing. That little partners of yours is getting on my nerves, Kakashi. It seems I can't deal with you alone. So what do you say I get to spice things up a bit? Said Kabuto, before sudden black markings appeared all over his body, making Kakashi flinch in fear. He, then, vanished and appeared next to Naruto, who eyed his partner and sensei with question. Naruto, I guess we'll have to pair up against this guy. He just activated a cursed seal, so that's what Orochimaru wanted with Kabuto. Get ready, we're fighting together, stated Kakashi, earning a nod from Naruto before he unleashed his katana. For a moment there, I was beginning to think you didn't need my help, Kakashi, smiled Naruto, even though the fact that we're now facing a very powerful enemy. He, then, saw Kabuto emerge from within the bushes now filled with black dots all over his body, showing to the experienced eye that he was using only the first level of the cursed seal. Sasuke was only able to reach 2 levels of cursed seal, but what if he and Orochimaru managed to go beyond it? Asked Naruto, while looking at his sensei, who in turn never took his eyes off the enemy. But the fact remained that Kakashi was very troubled with Naruto's wanderings. The cursed seal in itself, it's already a powerful and deadly weapon, and with the second level of the cursed seal, a skilled shinobi would be nearly unstoppable. So, what about the third level? Kakashi considered his sanity, then trying to respond the question. He conserved his brainpower to think of valuable strategies to be used against Kabuto. At the Hokage's office, the Hokage was busy going through some reports like usual. Naruto and Kakashi were still due to return from their mission, and it kind of got the blonde worried about their safety. The mission they undertook was an assassination mission, plain and simple. Get in and get out. However, it's been 2 days already and not a word from them. Assigning someone to go after them would be completely against the rules, as ANBU-level missions worked in a different way. Mostly, because of their identities having to remain a secret, Tsunade couldn't send just anyone after them from fear of the mask simply falling while being attended. She was still working out some loophole on the mission rules in order to send someone, when she heard someone knocking on the door. After dully authorized, Tsunade was surprised for a moment, before the idea suddenly clicked. Who else could she send to retrieve a couple of ANBUs than the very team captain and vice captain? Hawk and Bear went out on an investigation assignment close to the border with Fire and Rain Country and returned a couple hours ago, searching for both Naruto and Kakashi. Hawk, Bear, please come inside, I have something I wish to talk to you too, ordered the Hokage, before seeing the 2 ANBUs kneel on the ground in total servitude. What can we do for you, Tsunade-sama? Asked Hawk. A couple days ago, I sent Black Wolf and Dog to a mission to a village near Wind Country border in order to take care of a missing nin that was terrorizing a village there. Normally, after the mission completion, either one of them sends a message saying that they are returning. However, it's been 2 days since they left, and with the speed they go, I'd estimate only a day of traveling at the most. I fear that something happened with them, but due to regulations, I'm found with no other alternative but to send you 2 there for assistance. It's highly advisable to leave now, since for all we know, they could be in the middle of a battle going on and are in need of backup, reported Tsunade, earning a nod followed by another bold to the Hokage, before using Shunshin to appear at the administration building's ceiling. What should we do, Hawk Taiko? Asked Bear as he sent his best to the comrades they are about to rescue. According to the Hokage, it's normally a day of traveling in the direction of the border between Wind and Fire Country, so we must hurry and reduce this time, ordered Hawk, earning a nod from Bear as they dashed through the rooftops, until the gate was visible. Once passing the gates, the ANBUs used their skills to further increase their speed by channeling chakra to his feet the exact same time the feet lands on the treetop, thus having more propulsion towards the next incoming tree. Back with the fight. Because of the cursed seal level 1, Kabuto's speed increased tenfold, which was causing some trouble for both Kakashi and Naruto to keep up. Right now, Naruto managed to land consecutive katana attacks, landing a few cuts to Kabuto's abdomen, before Kakashi came and landed one roundhouse kick straight on the man's head, sending him flying a couple of meters, before he used his legs to force his stop. Immediately, Naruto placed his katana back at the holster and started making some hand signs for Suiden Hanryu, water release. Destruction current jutsu. Kabuto was suddenly engulfed by the sudden tidal wave crashing down his head, while wondering about the fact that the man just used a Suiden attack. Suddenly, he sensed a different source of chakra, but it was too late as the sudden electric current courtesy of Kakashi's attack sent 1,000 bolts to Kabuto's inner organs, damaging them quite a bit. Black Wolf, this is serious. He is only at Cursed Seal level 1 and he's already giving us trouble because of his healing abilities. We'll have to step things up a bit, said Kakashi, while seeing the results of their coordinated efforts. Wouldn't it be better to save our chakra for the further levels of the Cursed Seal? At level 2, he will be stronger, faster, but his mind won't be the same. He will begin to attack head-on without thinking of the consequences. I don't even want to think that he can reach a 3rd level, reasoned Naruto, earning a nod from Kakashi as it surely wouldn't be a nice thing if they were out of chakra and Kabuto could still use another level of the damn seal. The pair had to cut short their conversation since Kabuto just casted a strong genjutsu on them, but it didn't take long since both ANBU managed to dispel early enough for them to dodge Kabuto's chakra scalpels. Naruto, now focusing some wind chakra to his blade, did a backflip and sliced the air with as much force as he could handle. By doing this, though, with the additional wind chakra for the technique propulsion, Kabuto looked on in shock to see the huge arc of wind coming right after him, before cutting him in half. Kakashi would be shocked by this level of skill in kenjutsu, if the situation wasn't so dangerous. However, though, he had the decency to curse Orochimaru for this technique as he saw Kabuto's body pretty much join together. He, then, jumped where Naruto was standing and whispered his plan to the blonde. Then, the two began their respective sequence of hand seals. Kaden Karyuden, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Projectile Jutsu, Futon Repusho, Wind Release, Gale Wind Palm Jutsu. Immediately, the two elemental beams joined in with it. Not only the beam of fire was bigger, but also it was faster, thus hitting Kabuto dead on his chest, burning him down like a crisp as well as sending the man straight towards a river nearby. The attack was devastating, burning a couple of trees that were closer to Kabuto's position, but once more, the man appeared on top of the river unscathed, although his body was entirely burned. Snarling in frustration, Naruto ran towards the river, much to Kakashi's protest, and made some hand signs before stepping on the river. Suiden Mizu Kamakiri, Water Release, Rising Watercutter Jutsu. Suddenly, Naruto sent the attack at Kabuto, who barely managed to evade the attack, before looking back to see a tree sliced in half because of the attack. He, then, looked towards the ANBU who by now, was already out of the water side by side with Kakashi. Kabuto frowned in respect of the blonde-haired guy. Not only he was quite efficient in futon ninjutsu and his sword, but he has skills regarding Suiden attacks as well. And the jutsu repertoire was simply breathtaking. Orochimaru would sure appreciate having this fellow under his command for sure. However, he needed to kill Kakashi, and if the blonde stands in the way, he would have to be killed as well. Well, Kakashi, I was actually hoping to get rid of you with only the first level of the Cursed Seal, but seeing as I can't land a hit on either of you, how about we spice things a bit? Asked Kabuto, as he activated the Cursed Seal level 2. His skin was darker now and two horns appeared on each side of his head. Spikes also appeared on his back, like the extension of his spinal cord. His clothes were ripped to pieces. During this transformation, Naruto and Kakashi were seizing their options right now. Going head-on against Kabuto now was ludicrous, since both his speed and strength nearly doubled. However, they could perhaps maintain a certain distance from the man, thus forcing him to make a mistake if Naruto's theory about the second level of the Cursed Seal proved to be right. Suddenly, Kabuto exploded forwards the two ANBUs, but Naruto beat him to it by holding the Tiger Seal for a genjutsu called Kokwangyu no Jutsu, Journey into Black Darkness Jutsu. In seconds, Kabuto's world turned to darkness and he couldn't see a damn thing. Kakashi, however, seized the opportunity and took his ninjutsu to slice the man into pieces. Unfortunately, because of the second level of the Cursed Seal, Kabuto's body was hardened, thus the only damage Kakashi was able to inflict were a couple of bruises on Kabuto's arm. Nice try, Kakashi. This is a very strong genjutsu, but since you can't deliver the killing blow it's kind of useless. Kai, whispered Kabuto, before the daylight suddenly appeared showing the two ANBUs in front of him and the blonde guy holding the tiger seal. Choosing to attack him instead, Kabuto charged against Naruto, who kept waiting until the enemy reached his position before he focused chakra to his feet and legs, increasing his agility, while landing wind-charged katana attacks. Naruto managed to slice one of Kabuto's arms, but as usual, the arm would just join with the body once more. Snarling in frustration, Naruto twisted his body and raised his foot up to the enemy's hand, thus landing a reverse kick on the guy's neck with force. Normally, the sound of a neck breaking meant someone was dead, but in this case, Kabuto wasn't even fazed by the attack. Picking a couple of scalpels from his holster, Kabuto threw all of them at the blonde, before smirking in satisfaction as all of them managed to hit the target. Naruto snarled at the pain, but managed to escape from Kabuto's chakra scalpels by focusing some wind chakra around his body and create a vacuum of air, not allowing the enemy to make a step further. That gave him the opportunity to jump away from the fight and see Kakashi engaging Kabuto once more with a raikiri straight on Kabuto's chest, before focusing some lightning chakra to damage the organs severely. Kakashi, then, aimed a powerful kick on Kabuto's chest, sending the enemy flying, before jumping back to see how Naruto was faring. He was surprised to see the blonde ripping the scalpels one by one from his arms and legs, each of them followed by a slight grunt in pain from the blonde, but otherwise, he was ready to battle. Don't worry, eventually it will heal. Nevertheless, our attacks aren't causing the desired effect. What can we do? Asked Naruto, earning a sigh in contemplation from Kakashi. He was asking himself this question over and over again. Both he and Naruto managed to deliver some heavy punishment on the enemy that would obliterate any other enemy. However, Kabuto's body would just join once more, like nothing happened. Kakashi knew it was the same thing that the Sandaime Hokage faced when the Sound tried to invade Konoha, and Kakashi just didn't want to use the technique Sarutobi used to take care of the situation. I don't know, but we need to replenish our chakra. Here, take a chakra pill. We need to be on top of our strength and hopefully, we can land one attack that will kill him, said Kakashi, earning a nod from Naruto as he ingested the chakra pill, before feeling his chakra being replenished once more. Not that he actually needed it because of the high chakra capacity, but eventually, he would run out of it. They both got up the second Kabuto appeared once more in front of them, but right now, they could see that the man was letting his emotions get the better of him. Kabuto was right now drooling like a mad person. No doubt because of the cursed seal's effect on people. You two are starting to become a pain and I'll kill you all as if the last thing I do, shouted Kabuto, clearly affected because of the cursed seal running through his system. However, to both Naruto and Kakashi's experience, Kabuto's chakra was flaring uncontrollably and that only meant trouble on the horizon. Suddenly, the horns started to grow up and his canines as well, giving him a beast appearance like no other seen before. Naruto and Kakashi didn't even see the enemy until they both received a strong punch on the chest, sending them both flying. Using the momentum, both flipped their bodies and fixed their feet on the ground, thus stopping. However, even before they could see what happened, Kabuto was right in front of them, landing, this time, a couple of hard punches everywhere on the body. Kakashi was having trouble even to accompany the enemy's movements with his Sharingan. But one thing was to see the movements and another was to move accordingly to intercept. This was a new level of cursed seal and it certainly increased speed and power, but like Naruto predicted, Kabuto was transformed from the usually calculating shinobi to a raging maniac. The only problem was the immeasurable pain both were feeling at the moment. The attacks were brutal and every bone in their bodies was now aching in pain. Looking up, Kakashi noticed that Naruto was struggling to fight Kabuto in his third cursed seal level. Punches, scratches, kicks, the blonde was more fitted to be a punching bag. Kabuto was nowhere to be seen until Naruto received a strong kick on the gut, before flying all the way to an incoming tree, before his body slammed hard on the ground. Blood poured out of his mouth and his vision was getting blurred, because of his body hitting the tree hard. Suddenly, Naruto looked up to see Kabuto in front of him, with a smirk on his face as he extended his claws in order to move for the killing blow. As the arms moved, Naruto snarled in dismay at the idea of dying right now. Ever since he started his career as an ANBU, he never stopped facing death-like situations and managing to overcome the obstacles. He trained like hell each day and because of that, His name in ANBU HQ was spoken with respect, at least his codename was. Also, thinking about his angel, he surely wished he could be with her right now, instead of here on the verge of receiving the killing blow. He closed the mental link between the fox inside his body, who for his part was screaming for Naruto to use his chakra and deal with Kabuto, but he wouldn't do it. No doubt, he would be able to win the battle by simply using one tail worth of the fox's power. However, by doing so, it would ruin everything he tried dearly to prevent the fox from controlling his urges. If he was supposed to die, he would die as a shinobi, not a demon. He saw Kabuto moving his arm and closed his eyes as in waiting for the blow. However, it didn't come as he looked up only to see what appeared to be a ninjutsu going through Kabuto's chest, before Kakashi came in and sent the enemy flying with a chakra-oriented kick. He, then, kneeled next to Naruto and made Naruto eat a soldier pill for some energy. "Are you okay?" asked Kakashi, earning a nod from Naruto. "I'm alright. I actually thought he was going to kill me. Thanks for saving me," said Naruto, earning a sigh in contemplation from Kakashi. "I'd never abandon one of my students, even though it won't take long for you to surpass me. We'll need to focus our last source of chakra into one concentrated ninjutsu. His speed is too great for us to follow. Any ideas?" asked Kakashi, earning a nod from Naruto. "Prepare your strongest fire technique and I'll handle the rest," stated Naruto, earning a nod from Kakashi, who in turn considered the fact that Naruto is well versed on using coordinated ninjutsu. Standing next to each other, they eyed Kabuto, who in turn was displaying a devilish smirk on his face as his teeth were drooling with saliva. He, then, opened his mouth to speak, but his voice was different. "Prepare to die, both of you," shouted Kabuto as he prepared another charge against the two. Quickly, both Naruto and Kakashi started hand signs in rapid succession, before both ended at the Tiger Seal. "Kaden Karyu Enden, Fire Release Fire Dragon Missile Projectile Jutsu," whispered Kakashi as he gathered air on his chest. "Futon Kyumu Shippuu, Wind Release Fierce Hurricane Jutsu," whispered Naruto, before both of them whispered the creation of a new coordinated jutsu called Hinote Shippuu no Jutsu, Blazing Hurricane Jutsu. The Fire Dragon technique soon merged with Naruto's Hurricane, thus transforming into a fire tornado, engulfing everything in its path. As soon as Kabuto stepped forward to attack the ANBUs, he was suddenly engulfed by the technique. He would have screamed in pain because of the unbearable temperature inside the hurricane. His entire body was being consumed by the enhanced fire until his body began melting all the way to his head. Suddenly, the seal used to revive the dead appeared from his head, before it burned because of the technique. And since the seal was the one responsible for fixing his body over and over again, nothing did prevent Kabuto's body to simply dissolve from the unbearable temperature. Naruto and Kakashi, though, fell to unconsciousness the minute they released the technique, never knowing if it really worked against Kabuto. In Konoha, quickly running through the hospital corridors, Yuhei Kurenai felt her heart beating like crazy. She received the news from one of her boyfriend's team that he was badly injured and was in treatment for heavy chakra exhaustion. She had to curse her boyfriend's chakra capacity to fail him now of all times. She reached the room where her boyfriend was staying with Hitaki Kakashi, and she saw Tsunade come out of the room with a heavy sigh on her face, probably meaning the worst. "Tsunade-sama, how is he? How's my boyfriend?" asked Kurenai, on the verge of losing her mind because of immeasurable pain she was feeling. Tsunade, for her part, looked at Kurenai before she nodded in the positive, somehow easing Kurenai's pain severely. "He is fine, Kurenai. Just some extreme case of chakra exhaustion and couple of broken ribs. Nothing that a full week rest at the hospital wouldn't cure. Kakashi is slightly worse, but he'll make a full recovery. They gave us quite a scare, that's for sure. According to the team I sent that brought them back, the entire area was leveled, and Hawk, Naruto's ANBU captain, recognized the joint efforts of a Kaiten and Futon ninjutsu, so it suggests that a full-scale battle occurred and our guys were the winner. My guess is that they used every drop of chakra into one attack, thus managing to kill whoever it is that attacked them. Nonetheless, we won't know the full extent of what happened until they wake up, which could be in a couple of hours or a couple days, who knows," explained Tsunade, before looking at Kurenai. "You can go in if you want to, Kurenai. I'll tell the nurse to call you once the visitor's hour is over," said Tsunade, earning a nod from Kurenai as she, then, walked inside to see her boyfriend lying on the furthest bed from the door. She, then, walked towards the sleeping blonde and began playing with his head before whispering a few comforting words to the blonde. Needless to say, her heart wasn't hurting any longer, instead being filled with joy after seeing that he would be alright in a couple days. Nevertheless, she couldn't help but worry about who was the one responsible for doing this to both Naruto and Kakashi. These two were part of Konoha's elite, and for them to be in this situation meant that the attacker was Sage level or even Cage level. It didn't help trying to think about it right now, so she just waited for Naruto to wake up so that he could tell everything that happened. Chapter 23 Revelations. Nothing but darkness consumed our blonde hero as he tried to grasp what exactly happened. The last thing he remembered was getting beat by Kabuto like a punching bag before he and Kakashi used a coordinated ninjutsu in hopes of getting rid of the cursed seal menace. The results, though, were a blur to him since he was unconscious soon afterwards. Was he dead? Surely, if the technique didn't work, then Kabuto would be free to do with both him and Kakashi whatever he wanted, before delivering the killing blow. Beep, beep, beep. This noise kept playing constantly and Naruto wondered what it was for a second. It didn't take much time for him to realize the source of this peculiar sound, which made him open his eyes like he was just awakening from the worst nightmare of his life. He figured he was in a hospital since his eyes found the white color ceiling, and to the right, he could see the IV monitor, producing that steady noise echoing throughout the silent room. Stirring a little bit, he realized a little resistance from his left flank, before he turned to see the source. A smile soon appeared as the angel that filled his heart with warmth was there sleeping peacefully by his side. He wondered how long he was bedridden and if Kurenai was by his side this entire time when he heard a distinctive sound of another person grudgingly waking up. He managed to hear the individual rub his head as if nurturing a bump, before the blonde recognized the voice. Kakashi-sensei, you're here as well, I'm relieved. The silver-haired shinobi, for his instance, sounded just as surprised as Naruto was when he woke up. He, then, began to look around and wondered how the hell they arrived at Konoha's hospital. Naruto, what happened with the fight? Last thing I remember is the jutsu we managed and then we were unconscious, asked Kakashi. I don't know, I just awakened as well, wondering if I was dead and saw that we're here and that Kurenai-chan is by my side sleeping. After hearing Naruto's reply, Kakashi's mind went haywire on trying to remember what happened before they fell to unconsciousness. However, as much as he tried to figure out, nothing came, unfortunately. Suddenly, the door opened and both men could see that it was a nurse checking on them, if the outfit was any indication. The moment the woman realized that both of them woke up, she ran back towards the door, probably in order to call the responsible doctor in order to verify their condition. Because of the different noise, though, it managed to wake Kurenai up before she looked to see that Naruto was awake once more. Naruto-kun, I'm so glad you woke up. You got me so worried that you'd never wake up. Naruto was just glad in remaining there hugging the woman as he felt warmth within his heart. I'm sorry I got you worried, Kure-chan, but you could at least explain to us what happened. Both I and Kakashi-sensei are at a loss here. Kurenai nodded, before explaining everything that happened. She began by explaining how Hawk and Bear found the two unconscious on a leveled field, during which she explained that the probable cause was a high-level ninjutsu usage. After, she explained that they took 1 day to arrive at Konoha, before both managed to be hospitalized and both treated by Tsunade, who said that apart from some broken ribs and a mild chakra exhaustion, both Naruto and Kakashi would be up in no time. Naruto nodded in appreciation as he now knew the sudden pain that attacked his sideway, but otherwise he was fine now. It didn't take long for Tsunade to come in with a doctor next to her as she checked their vital signs for a moment. After checking Naruto's, she smiled and landed a friendly pat on his shoulder, ignoring the fact that the blonde flinched at the pain because of his broken ribs. Tsunade couldn't care less as this served as punishment for making both her and Kurenai worried this entire time. Well, brat, you did give us quite a scare back there, you deserve this. Now, you two are short in delivering the report regarding the mission I sent you, so since you Naruto was the leader, let's hear what happened. The blonde grunted once more because of the pain caused by Tsunade's friendly slap, but turned to explain, nonetheless. The mission to kill the missing nin wasn't much, and in the end, Naruto managed to capture the man without a problem. He managed to reach the scroll with the captured man before he gave to the Hokage. What troubled the blonde Hokage was when Naruto explained that upon coming back to the village, a presumably dead annoyance came from the dead and faced Kakashi in battle. Tsunade was shocked to hear that Orochimaru managed to reach yet another level of the Cursed Seal, and even more shocked when she heard about Naruto and Kakashi's killing blow technique that managed to torch an entire forest to crisps. Because of the report, Tsunade explained that the mission was now labeled S-ranked because of the complication that arose. Well, then, good job on the mission, well done. You two have the week off in order to recuperate from your wounds and be present in my office. Naruto, you have several broken ribs, but your chakra is right now stabilized. I don't know how, though, because normally chakra exhaustion takes a whole week to cure, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Kakashi, however, since he doesn't have a Biju stored inside of him, will take longer to recover his chakra to normal standards. If this jutsu you explained to me is any indication, then it's certain that Kakashi overstrained his chakra coils a bit. Get some rest you two, and while Naruto is free to go within 2 days, Kakashi will have to stay during the entire week. Now, I have to check other patients, so excuse me. After Tsunade left the room, Naruto then saw that Kurenai gets up as well, explaining that she needed to meet her team for a B-ranked mission she was about to undertake, earning a nod from Naruto before she was gone from the room, leaving the two injured ANBUs alone to think about the events that followed. Kakashi, for sure, wondered about the blonde's ability to think clearly in tight situations, which managed to save them for Kabuto in the end. I have to say, Naruto, I was impressed by the coordinated ninjutsu you just pulled. Was it new or one you and Hawk already made? Asked Kakashi. Entirely new, it was actually more of an experiment than anything, Kakashi-sensei. My technique, while a wind type, is too strong to be used for fusing purposes. Normally, in coordinated ninjutsu, my wind technique serves only to increase the power of Hawk's fire attacks. This is the first time I used an equally potent technique to add. In the end, though, it worked. However, I fear that Kabuto is just one of the dangers that the snake has in mind as of this moment. I'm still puzzled by why Orochimaru would revive Kabuto just for testing his new experiment on. Kakashi was having the same line of thought as his student, no teammate. Indeed, Orochimaru would have reached a dead end with his research in order to use Kabuto's body. Kakashi wasn't alien to the knowledge of Kabuto's healing abilities, and he considered the possibility that Orochimaru used Kabuto because his body would be able to resist the damage the third-level cursed seal would cause to the user. Nevertheless, now wasn't the time to pound much on this subject and get to rest as much as possible. Whatever his reasons were, we'd only make assumptions at the moment. For now, though, let's focus on healing our bodies so we can get out of the hospital faster. All right, smiled Kakashi as his eyes suddenly closed due to how fatigued he was. Naruto, after seeing his sensei sleep once more, lied down and looked at the ceiling in contemplation. Several things passed in his mind right now, and his head was beginning to show signs of overstrain. He thought about his fight, how he was ill-prepared against Kabuto. He thought about how close he has been to death. Before Kakashi came and saved him, he remembered his angel staying next to him until he woke up, but most of all, he remembered of his resolve in not using the fox's powers to protect himself against the enemy. It was weird since that power would obliterate Kabuto, cursed seal or not. But yet, Naruto didn't feel compelled to use it at that moment, for the simple reason that he wanted to depend on his own powers. He closed his eyes as in following his sensei, falling asleep shortly. He was with his eyes closed when he began to hear noise of water drops falling and then the noise reverberating like he was in a tunnel or something. He, then, opened his eyes and realized that he wasn't in the hospital any longer. He realized where he was shortly afterwards and began walking towards the place where the Biju would be waiting for him. He knew enough to realize that when he fell asleep and woke up in here, it meant that the fox wanted to say something important to him. A few steps later, he entered the cage room and walked in the middle of it, before standing in front of the gigantic cage in front of him. For a moment, though, nothing happened and Naruto wondered where the fox was if not inside the cage. He was beyond surprised, though, when he heard the fox's distinguished voice not in front of him, but right next to him instead. "Hello Naruto, it took you a while to come here. It was getting bored down here." Something was wrong. Naruto was certain about it. Not only the fact that the fox never left the cage, but the fact that he wasn't that usually gigantic presence that could smash Naruto with its paw. This Kyuubi was different. barely taller than the blonde with all 9 tails swirling around its bloody red fur. The fox was seating like a dog waiting for something, while looking at the blonde directly through the eyes. This time, though, the blonde couldn't feel any malice or ill intent that he usually could sense in their past discussions. I'm sure you're having a great number of questions right now, so I'll explain what happened for me to present myself before you in this form. The seal that prevented me from escaping was truly a work of a genius. As much as I wanted nothing but rip the man apart for doing this to the great Kyuubi no Yoko, it did prevented me from destroying the village and furthermore, take over your body and cause havoc throughout the world. One of the seal's power, which I only discovered yesterday, was that it becomes stronger the less you're dependent on my chakra, meaning that it becomes powered up by your chakra. The minute you stopped using my chakra, the seal became stronger and I couldn't do a thing against it. When I screamed for you to use my chakra against the snake's second in command, I wasn't trying to save you or me for that matter, yet by you using it, the seal would weaken, thus granting me an open escape. But you were stubborn through the end and because of it, you managed what I thought was never possible. Naruto was listening though everything and trying to adjust his brain for the information overload. Nevertheless, he now knew that a demon shall never be trusted and he ended up doing the right thing, but still he was waiting for the explanation for his answers. The fox sensed his uneasiness and knew that indeed he didn't ask the blonde's questions yet. I see that you're still a bit lost regarding what I've explained so far, but I bet one image will speak better than 1,000 words, so why don't you take a look at the center of the cage and tell me what do you see? The boy did as told, albeit he was wondering about this entire situation. He, then, looked at the cage and went rigid instantly. The seal was gone. How did this happen? What did you do to it, you bastard? The fox cleared its throat and stopped Naruto's rambling before he explained. Before you go haywire, trying to attack me and all, let me say to you that from now on, you don't have to worry about me. When I said that the seal was powered by your chakra, I wasn't lying. In fact, by using only your chakra, the seal ended up fusing with it. Now, it's not the seal that keeps me imprisoned, but rather your chakra alone. Furthermore, because the seal was now gone, so did the barrier preventing my chakra from leaking through your system before it merged with your own. You wonder how your chakra exhaustion problem was cured so fast, so there you have it. As of right now, you and I are one being, one huge quantity of chakra. As of right now, all I'm is a part of your consciousness. Naruto understood everything if his shocked face was any indication. He didn't know how this happened. Out of the blue, while the blonde was trapped in his own wonders, he heard a third voice behind him, before he turned to be more shocked than he was before. He knew this man like any shinobi in Konoha did. Yondaime Hokage in all its glory, flashing his white robe and carrying a smile on his face that was in a way similar to Naruto's old goofy smiles. But why was he here of all places? Naruto questioned. The fox is right, Naruto, although there's a sentence I never thought I'd say. As to why I'm appearing before you is simple. Before dying, I placed a small fragment of my chakra in the seal so that if something happens because of it, I could materialize in here and try to control the situation. Never would I believe that you would manage to resist the fox's urges like you did, and I'm proud of the man you became. The man kept smiling while the blonde was at a loss of what to say. The Yondaime placed a failsafe all this time and no one knew. But then it occurred to Naruto the strange vibe he was getting from this man. It was strange, because Naruto was feeling rather comfortable around his presence, like he relied on him for comfort. Also, he wondered as to why the Yondaime Hokage of all people expressed that he was proud of the man he became. Excuse me, sir, but why would you be proud of how I became and why do I feel strange around you? The question alone surprised the Yondaime, and Naruto was well aware of that. The face pretty much showed it. I see that nobody ever told you about the truth, huh? Well, I figured that Jiraiya-sensei and the old monkey Sarutobi would keep my request to the fullest, since you're not aware of whatever relation you and I share. You see, Naruto, you're my son, and that's why I said that I was proud, as any father, of the man my son became. Naruto stopped breathing instantly. All it could be heard was his beating heart pounding heavily inside his chest. The blonde never paid much attention to whom his parents were after the Sandaime kept constantly refusing to ever tell him about it. But even if he dismissed it as non-important, the question was always there, carefully hidden for when Naruto was the age Sandaime considered adequate to hear about his father and mother. Suddenly, though, an immense ire burned within his body as he looked at the man who pretty much ruined his life and left him all alone without anyone to look out for him when he was a kid. Then, with an uncharacteristic speed, he lunged forward and landed a strong kick to Minato's stomach, before seeing as the man doubled in pain on the floor. Why did you choose your own son to beat this burden, huh? Have you any idea of the pain I went through every single day since I could remember? Naruto shouted with uncontrolled anger. Minato was on the floor holding his stomach from his son's impressive kick, but he guessed he deserved it. He was present through his son's life, even if just watching from the seal placed in Kyuubi's seal. He knew how much hatred the boy had to endure from those who mourned the loss of their loved ones by the Kyuubi. He knew about the unbearable nightmares that plagued his son's mind every time he went to sleep, and he knew his son's hardships regarding his shinobi status from lack of proper training when he was at the academy. But at the time, he knew the reason why Naruto was his choice to bear this burden as the pain of the kick subsided enough for him to get up and look at his son in the face. Naruto, I know that you're angry at your old man for what I made you go through, but please know that at the time, I didn't have much of a choice in the matter. While Minato explained, he was somewhat intrigued by those yellow feral eyes, even though he already knew about them, but he continued nonetheless. The fox was ravaging the entire village to pieces, and I just couldn't ask for any parent to hand in their son or daughter to handle the burden, so I entrusted it to you, my son. I asked everyone to treat you as the hero that saved the village, and I know that very few people ended up treating you as one. As Minato explained with a heavy heart the reasons, Naruto's expression was relaxing somewhat. He remembered when he told to Kakashi that the Yondaime chose him for this burden because he believed Naruto was capable of nurturing the demon. But Naruto was much of a human to demand explanation for growing up pretty much alone. I also asked those loyal to me to keep this information from you in hopes that my enemies wouldn't seek retribution for what I did against Iwa in the last shinobi war. So, don't blame them for not telling you about me before. If you want to blame someone for it, then blame me for it. I admit I was pissed when I found out. All that I repressed while growing up, in hopes that it would go away with time. Everything was bottling up that when you told me this, my control wasn't strong enough to hold me for lunging at you, and for that I'm sorry. I ended up accepting the Kyuubi's burden and also accepted the fact that you considered me worthy of handling the fox. I'm sorry for my actions earlier, said Naruto with a solemn look on his face for his actions. His old man, though, only smiled at the blonde and his pride was evident. If it's someone who needs to apologize for is me, Naruto. Now, I don't have much time here, since you managed to overcome my chakra with yours, but I wanted to talk to you for a moment, get to know my son, what'd you say? Naruto smiled. For the first time in years, he showed a genuine smile at finally meeting the man that gave birth to him. Then, father and son started chatting about Naruto's life, which included his ANBU position, his team and certainly his new girlfriend. Minato was surprised with Naruto's companion, simply because of the fact that the woman was his age when he passed away, but he could see how much love his son had for this kurenai person, so he didn't pressure the subject. The man smiled from ear to ear when the boy asked about his mother. You want to hear about your mother? Well, her name was Uzumaki Kushina. Boy, I'll tell you. In all my years serving the village, never had I faced such temper before. If one would compare it, it would be as huge as the Hokage mountain in size. But she had a heart of gold and cared for everyone like they were her own family. When you showed up in her valley, she spent the entire 9 months embracing and caressing you. Naruto remained there hearing about his mother with a smile on his face as he imagined what life must have been for his parents before the fox appeared. He asked about her position in Konoha and was surprised to hear that she was one of the top ANBU captains that ever crossed these lands, with records only surpassed by Kakashi since he was operating way longer than her. Naruto was amazed to hear that his mother excelled in her kenjutsu abilities, and even the Sharingan had difficulties to follow her swift and sudden movements. Unfortunately, because of the fox arriving in Konoha, she just couldn't give birth to you properly from fear of what would happen to the village. In the end, she lost a lot of blood and she died shortly afterward. The somber look on Minato's face after reminiscing on his wife's death caused the blonde to look down in sadness, not only from losing his mother because of this, but also about one losing his companion and feeling irritably useless, not able to do anything to prevent such a terrible demise. Shortly, his face improved and a smile was visible. In the end, though, I got to meet her up there and together we've been watching you, my son. Every step you take, every breath you took, every shout you made to the heavens in order to explain why everything was happening to you. Your mother and I heard everything with a heavy heart from once again being useless to avoid any of it. However, within time, you became a man far beyond our expectations and you bear the will of fire. Our beloved Sandaime Hokage speaks so fond about it. Naruto smiled and nodded to his father. Atu-san, I managed to overcome all those hardships in the end and I've now released all that suppressed frustration on your stomach, he. There have been times when I would gather a lot of curse words to say to the one who put me through all that, but now I don't feel like that anymore. Facing the present and the future is enough trouble as it is. Why bother with what happened in the past, right? The younger blonde smiled after explaining his reasons, which in consequence, caused Minato to smile as well. He was meaning to get to know his son a bit more and seeing that even after everything that happened, he still manages to look forward as nothing short of mature and dignified. Suddenly, it appeared that Minato just remembered something because of his face. Just forgot for a moment, son, both me and your mother believe you have what it takes for a mission that's reserved solely for you and you alone. What is it? Asked Naruto, clearly interested at what Minato was about to say. It involves your mother's family's inheritance, since you're the sole heir of the Uzumaki clan. And so, Minato began explaining what would be needed of the blonde in order to proceed with the special mission, before the chakra stored in the seal vanished as father and son bid each other farewell. 1 week later, choosing to stay at the hospital in order to make Kakashi some company until he was recuperated, Naruto was thinking about his conversation with his long-deceased father and Yondaime Hokage. He ended up explaining everything to Kakashi, but he wasn't surprised that the silver-haired shinobi was already aware of Naruto being Yondaime's son. A few curses here and there, but in the end, the blonde forgot all about it and explained the mission he would need to undertake in order to receive what was left by his mother. All that Minato gave to him, though, was a riddle to solve which was created in order to better protect the treasure from those who wanted nothing good for the Uzumaki family. It was a 4-phrase riddle. In a land surrounded by whirlpools, lies the secret of the Uzumaki family. Hidden within the deepest pits and protected by a fierce creature made of water, only a true member of the Uzumaki family is allowed to enter. Nevertheless, not only by blood will it be granted passage. Minato also gave Naruto a special code that must be given to the Hokage in order to receive the mission specs entrusted by his mother Kushina to the Sandaime Hokage. A part of Naruto felt betrayed that the Sandaime Hokage knew about this all along and didn't tell him, but reason speaks highly in this manner and Naruto had to respect the third Hokage from honoring his father's wish to the grave. The young blonde would need to go alone to whatever place his father and mother just sent him, but he wasn't particularly thrilled, so he thought of maybe dragging his wolf partner Ace with him. Now, the blonde was walking throughout the streets of Konoha, heading for the Inuzuka residence in hopes of getting his friend's support in this manner. As a matter of fact, Naruto and Ace didn't meet since Ace stayed to take care of his pups and allow them to grow healthy and skilled. Nowadays, though, Naruto believed that the wolf was bored since all his pups were assigned to the new crop of Inuzuka genins. As soon as he stopped in front of the compound, though, his trained eyes caught what appeared to be wind-induced attack coming his way, before he smirked and proceeded to make a quick series of hand seals to form his Futon Kei's no Yaiba, wind release, wind sword jutsu. The problem was that this one was twice as big as the old one, thus overcoming Ace's Futon Kei's no Kiba, wind release, wind claw jutsu, quite easily. Also, the fact that the wind sword was disoriented, spoke highly of Naruto's sudden increase in chakra. Suddenly, the wolf appeared walking casually together, a gray little pup walking alongside him. It was about time you showed up to visit me, Naruto. I was here thinking you'd stop thinking about your old friend. The blonde had the decency to look sheepish despite having well reason for not visiting his wolf friend. The fact that he was in the hospital for the duration of the week, not to mention those sack of missions. The missions kept me out of my social life, sorry. I thought that by now, your pups would be designated with the Inuzuka genins by now. I didn't know you had another one. How are you, little guy? As Naruto knelt down, he started playing with the little wolf, scratching his ears a little bit. The little wolf was enjoying life greatly while the blonde continued to scratch the back of his ears. This little guy here is different. He'll be designated to Kiba's little cousin. He's at the academy right now, said Ace as he began licking his pup for a bit, before he looked at Naruto. I can see that you didn't come here just to play me a visit, and it seems that you finally have answers for all the questions you sought before. Yeah. I had a little talk with the fox and a long-lost parent of mine, but I guessed you already knew, right, Ace? No, I didn't just come here for a social visit. I need your help. The wolf for his part smiled at his blonde companion from already knowing what Naruto needed of him. When are you supposed to leave? Asked Ace. I'm on my way to request 2 weeks to complete the mission my mother left me to complete. If all goes right, then we can meet tomorrow at the West Gate. Can I count on you, my friend? The wolf nodded, before grabbing the little wolf on his mouth. Turning, he began to walk inside the Inuzuka residence, while Naruto smiled and left as well, on his way to the Hokage's office. The blonde supposed he should go light on the blonde Hokage, considering that just like the Sandame, she's holding on to his father's memory. Nevertheless, some questions will be asked regarding how he came into contact with the truth behind Naruto's parents and the reason as to why Kyuubi was sealed inside him, for that matter. At the Hokage's office, Senju Tsunade could say that she was surprised. No, if something, she was downright shocked. Reason? Well, Uzumaki Naruto was in front of her, asking to know about the mission code named Whirlpool. Tsunade knew this word from reading her sensei's journals, and if Naruto knows about it, then he already knows about the truth. It couldn't be possible. No one knew about his parents, and those who knew were asked not to tell him until Sarutobi felt it was safe to do so. His face, though, detected no ill intent towards her, and if he knew all about the truth, certainly Naruto would throw a fit over her for hiding such information from the blonde. His face remained impassive as though this was a normal occurrence, which was unsettling for the blonde Hokage. You don't need to be apprehensive about it, Tsunade-sama. I already know the truth and I'm not blaming anyone from keeping it from me. I just asked to perform the mission that it was bestowed to me by my mother. She would have flinched at his bored tone for such a manner, but she didn't feel any negative response from Naruto, so he was indeed speaking the truth. Pressing a button inside one of the desk's drawers, a blue scroll suddenly materialized within a hidden compartment from the desk and picked up by Tsunade. Your mother hoped, beyond hope, that this day would come, but she hoped she would be alive as well to guide you through the path ahead. This mission is reserved to you and you alone, Naruto, so I'll send a letter to the ANBU commander explaining that you received a mission directly from me. I would wish you good luck, but I have a feeling you don't need it. Tsunade smiled as she gave the scroll to Naruto to read the contents. He would have to go to a place called Whirlpool Country, located between water and sea country. In a land surrounded by whirlpools, lies the secret of the Uzumaki family. The blonde was beginning to realize the fact that just reaching the island will prove to be troublesome, much less retrieve whatever his mother left him. He bowed to the woman in front of him, before taking his leave at the door, but Tsunade called him. Naruto, I want you to know that, said Tsunade. Once more, you don't need to worry about it, Tsunade-sama. I'm not angry at anyone for upholding this information. I've already unleashed my frustrations on the person who started all this. Have a good day. Tsunade was, then, left dumbfounded while wondering what Naruto meant by unleashing on the person who started all this. Wait. Who started all this was the Yondaime. She gave up instantly in trying to understand the blonde enigma. Suddenly, two people Tsunade never thought would approach her, unless it was a question of national security at the very least. ANBU Commander Yamato and ANBU Black Ops Commander Ibiki standing in front of her, and for unknown reason, but Tsunade felt inclined to believe that this concerned the blonde that just left the premise. And what would you know? She was right. Okay, let me get this straight. You both are here before me requesting to promote ANBU Team 5 to the Black Ops. Do explain your reasons for such and I'll consider. This particular team is responsible for many accomplishments within the ANBU ranks, and I would find strange for you, Yamato, to consider dismissing such a fine team under your charge. Tsunade knew much of the Black Ops department to know that their principal activity is running the intelligence department as well as the village leader's protection at all times. But what intrigued her to no end was why Ibiki took an interest in a full assault squad like Team 5. Those four belonged to the front lines, not behind some desk, analyzing papers. Yamato, for his part, almost felt inclined to agree with the Hokage, but his ANBU department wasn't only consisted of one team, and as such, his subordinated needed to know that while Team 5 has shown incredible results, they are equally important to the village. I'm well aware of their achievements, Tsunade-sama, but the ANBU organization consists of more than just Team 5. I also happen to know that this team specializes in open combat, but both Hawk and Dog have experience at the intelligence department. Bear and Black Wolf are fast learners of what it takes to operate in the shadows, said Yamato. Also Tsunade-sama, my organization is understaffed right now and I believe Team 5 will be a fine addition. With Dog's Sharingan and Hawk's quick wits, certainly the team could provide some information that can save us in the future, said Ibiki. Tsunade heard both of them and began to think about it. Surely, it would be a good idea to test this team in different scenarios, and indeed Ibiki recently complained about the lack of personnel to assist him in the intelligence department. Nevertheless, she didn't like to take Team 5 away from the field since they were responsible for ridding Konoha of a great number of potentially dangerous enemies. I'll allow the promotion, but regarding this particular team, we'll have to compromise the two organizations. Surely, you Ibiki deserve a worthy platoon to lead, but Team 5's presence in the field is too valuable. As such, it will be required of them to be on the front lines when requested by the Hokage. Are we in agreement? After both nodded, Tsunade approved their joint petition and started rubbing her temples with more paperwork to solve. She just hoped Naruto wouldn't kill her for doing something like this. The boy was 1 year short on completing his required service for the ANBU forces, and 1 year at the ANBU Black Ops would serve to complete his training to become a full-fledged Junin next year. At night, as soon as the sun disappeared from view, Konoha was filled with lights all over the place. Naruto chose this moment to wander around the village for a while. People went up and down, left and right, smiling, talking, presumably without a care in the world. The blonde was due to find Kurenai to talk to her about his mission to Whirlpool Country, and he was a little afraid that she would be angry at him for not wanting her to go with him to this mission. Suddenly, she heard her voice nearby and turned to see the love of his life in the dango stand talking with her once genin team, and apparently Mitarashi Anko was there as well. As he approached the place, unsurprisingly, Kiba and Akamaru picked his scent. Shino got the information from his bugs and Hinata was already aware of his presence. The only one unaware was Kurenai, since Anko was seated facing his direction. As he approached further, he could hear the topic of discussion as being a mission they just returned from. Kurenai, though, was surprised when someone out of the blue appeared behind her and kissed her on the left cheek. She was instantly surprised for a moment, before she recognized the set of lips that landed the kiss and smiled before looking up to see her boyfriend smiling at her. You must improve your senses, Kure-chan. I just sneaked past you. Hey everyone, how's going? As Naruto greeted everyone, Kurenai smiled and pointed for Naruto to grab a chair and join them, to which Naruto nodded and sit by her side. So what's the talk about? I hear it was a mission that failed. What happened? Kiba snorted in dismay and kept mumbling, stupid clients and stupid lies, but Kurenai filled in the blanks. We had a B-ranked escort mission towards Marsh Country. The client lied to us saying that only bandits were after him, but apparently a whole team of Iwa shinobi was after the man. 3 of them managed to corner us, while the 4th and the 5th captured the client. Thus the mission was a failure. Naruto nodded and remembered about that old drunk Tazuna doing the same thing. Yeah, my genin team encountered something like this. It was a C-ranked mission, being labeled a ranked, simply because one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist Momochi Zabuza wanted the client's head. If it wasn't for Kakashi-sensei, then the mission would be a complete failure. Safe to say, we were lucky to leave with our heads glued to our necks. I'm just glad none of you got badly hurt, although from the smell of blood, Kiba and Hinata were badly hurt on the knees. The team would have been surprised for the blonde's assessment, but the failure of the mission happened to strike their ego. But Kurenai, Shino and Anko looked at Naruto suspiciously. Naruto could be a tough ANBU member, but his nose isn't similar to the Inuzuka's in order to sense the smell of blood and worse, know exactly where the wound was. Nevertheless, the conversation went on, until they left the table and Naruto went to Kurenai's house to sleep there. At Kurenai's house, Lemon. You've been warned. Straight after closing the door, Kurenai went to her room to change her mission clothes. Naruto spotted some blood stenches and wondered if the blood was hers or the enemy's. After questioning, she explained that it was the enemy's, from trapping a man in a genjutsu before cutting his jugular. Naruto was at the living room waiting for his girlfriend to get more comfortable. Within minutes, Naruto was left speechless and drooling at the sight of his gorgeous girlfriend wearing nothing but red lingerie without ushering him inside her room with her finger. Naruto didn't need to think twice as he got up from the couch and followed Kurenai to her room. Once she closed the door, she immediately locked it, since Anko could appear any time, before engaging in a fierce and passionate kissing with her boyfriend. Her excitement only grew when Naruto, while enveloping her on a hug, took her to the bed before falling on top of her. The room temperature was slowly rising as Kurenai asked the blonde to take his clothes off, before she began to massage his chest slowly, while licking her lips in anticipation. Also, since Naruto was looking at her with a smile on his face, spoke highly of his intentions to satisfy her to the fullest, and she loved to see it. "You don't know how much I missed this, Kure-chan." Naruto, then, started to lick the woman's wonderful skin, starting with the neck as he worked with his tongue. At this time, Kurenai forgot every bad thing that happened at the mission and just relaxed while feeling the blonde's weight on top of her, as in protecting her from outside threats. When Naruto went south, to her chest region, her hormones began to kick uncontrollably, ending with her total surrender to the blonde's urges. He would lick one of her tits while using his hands to massage them gently, but yet arousing. "Oh yeah, Naruto-kun. You know how I love when you do this. Please don't stop." The woman was in total bliss, not at all interested in knowing that Anko was already in her living room, adjusting the couch to sleep. After a few tender moments with her tits, Naruto went south once more, until he reached Kurenai's sensitive area. Immediately upon feeling the blonde's tongue down there, Kurenai shivered and she could already feel her inner walls getting tighter in delight. The problem was when Naruto began the ministrations, which earned a squeal in delight, while bending her body, losing total control of her urges. She was a mess in control right now, and the only thing she managed to do was to caress his golden hair, which proved to be even more arousing as her inner walls was beginning to surrender under the pressure. Suddenly, she began to lose her breath and all Naruto could hear were murmurs for him to continue. It wasn't long until she began to moan harder and harder and her inner walls ended up succumbing to sheer ecstasy. Afterward, she jerked her head with force to her pillow, almost satisfied as Naruto appeared on top of her once more, but this time he was naked with his member showing, wanting some action on his own. The woman, almost unconsciously, widened her legs as in sending an open invite for Naruto to do with her as he so pleased. The blonde smiled and then positioned his member, before thrusting inside, earning a delicate moan from Kurenai. "I don't know how, but everything you do to me completely force me to surrender, Naruto-kun." "Oh my." The blonde just smiled and initiated the sequenced movement inside and out of her inner organs, while daring to increase her sensation of pleasure by licking her tits as well. Only Naruto knew that Kurenai's tits were her sensitive spot and the blonde was exploring every bit, much to her never-ending delight. Without a moment's notice, Naruto focused chakra down there, thus increasing the pleasure tenfold. However, as he did so, Kurenai followed as well, enduring her inner walls to receive Naruto's cock full force. Now, his member was getting harder and harder, indicating that he was slowly getting on his limit and Kurenai was feeling it fully. "Kure-chan, I'm about to. Oh my god. This is so good." The woman mimicked her boyfriend's expression and Naruto could feel her inner organs contort, expressing her utter pleasure in all this. Both managed to come the same time, and since Naruto was wearing a condom, Kurenai didn't need to worry about getting pregnant as an outcome. Not that she minded, of course, because right now, she was feeling his member fully inside her and it was a feeling like no other. After the lovemaking, both rested next to each other, in perfect harmony with one another. They were about to sleep, but Naruto was still due to tell everything he learned so far. Kurenai is his girlfriend, probably going as far as considering her to be his wife someday, so he felt confidence enough in sharing his secret with her. The woman was flashing a smile on her face while closing her eyes, before Naruto chose this moment to tell her everything that happened while he was at the hospital. "Kure-chan, I'll be leaving tomorrow for a mission, but not just any mission, this one will be life-altering for me." It wasn't what Naruto said that spiked her interest, but rather his solemn tone of voice. Kurenai knew that few topic caused him to look like this, and it's either Kyuubi related or information about his family, or lack thereof. "Why is it life-altering, Naruto-kun? What's the mission about?" asked Kurenai, though she was feeling unease at this whole situation, probably because of the fox being mentioned. "When I was at the hospital, I ended up being dragged to the fox's subconscious one time. When I arrived at the cage, I was terrified to see that the seal preventing the creature was completely removed and that the fox was staring at my side talking to me." Kurenai was scared instantly, but since Naruto didn't stop talking about it, she chooses to listen the whole thing instead. The Kyuubi explained to me something about one of the seal's ability to sync with my chakra, after some time not depending on the fox's chakra to survive. Because of this, his chakra ended up fusing with mine, transforming him into nothing more than my consciousness, a second voice if you will inside my head. I was relieved instantly. And so was Kurenai, but she just listened, while at the same time, feeling for the blonde as he continued to explain what happened. Suddenly, though, the Yondaime Hokage appeared by my side since before his death, he managed to hide some of his chakra on the seal in case something happened. He appeared and confirmed everything the fox said, but not only that, he also told me something that made my blood boil. Kurenai's eyes were already widened severely because of what her boyfriend was telling her. "What did he tell you?" asked Kurenai. "He told me he was my father and he explained why he chose me for the fox sealing procedure." Naruto had to stop for a moment, in order for Kurenai to slowly process everything that was now told. The woman, for instance, looked at her boyfriend and thought about punching herself multiple times from not realizing the uncanny resemblance. After he told me this, I swore. I just lost control and attacked him. I don't know why, because I don't lose my temper easily, but something must have triggered this reaction. He took it all, though asking me not to blame those who knew about it, because he asked them not to. Of course you attacked him, Naruto-kun. After all you've been through and suddenly looking at the person who started all this, it just wasn't possible to hold back. After all, you're a human being. And this mission you're going tomorrow, is it related to the Yondaime? The woman was surprised when Naruto nodded in the negative, because she thought Naruto was considering it life-altering. The mission has to do with finding what my mother left behind for me. Her name was Uzumaki Kushina and she was one of the top kenjutsu users in Konoha. She entrusted this mission to be handed to me by the Sandaime Hokage a week before her death after giving birth to me. The mission specs told that I was to go alone as the place is only reachable by someone who possesses the Uzumaki blood. I don't know what I will find there. Kurenai now understood why Naruto was referring to this as life-altering, and she respected the necessity of going alone. What was important right now and pretty much demanded of her to repay for Naruto's complete trust on her was for the woman to support him and believe in him. Naruto-kun, I know it was difficult for you to share this secret with me and I appreciate it. Ever since your kid, you wanted to know about the mysteries surrounding your father and mother and if they ever existed. Please know that as your girlfriend and lover, I'll support you in everything you need of me, including, of course, maintaining secrecy, since I believe that we're talking about an S-ranked secret here. Naruto nodded and kissed her on the lips once, before caressing her beautiful face. I love you so much, Kurenai-chan, and I really wanted to show you a picture of my mother sometime. She was very beautiful. My father showed me. Kurenai just nodded, before both went to sleep soon afterward. She smiled upon getting her lover's trust for such an important topic, and she couldn't be more in love with the blonde than she is now. At the West Gate, after saying his goodbye to Kurenai, Naruto dressed up his ANBU gear and left the premises towards the gate where he would meet with his partner Ace. The blonde knew about going alone on this mission, but Ace was his best friend as Naruto was his. They helped each other and Naruto was now in need of some help. After checking out with the Chunin gatekeepers, Naruto met with his wolf partner and began his journey unaware of what he will see once he arrived at his mother's family's sanctuary. One thing he was certain, though, this mission would surely change his life for good, as the presumably never-ending mystery will finally met its closure. And that concludes part 5 of this story. Thank you for spending your time here at Ichiraku Ramen and listening all the way to the end. Your support helps keep these stories alive and allows the shinobi world to continue through new adventures and alternate timelines. If you enjoyed Lone Wolf, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. Once again, full credit goes to Anime Enthusiast, the original writer of this story. If you would like to read the original version, you can find the link to the story in the description below. Let me know in the comments what story you would like to hear next. Until the next time, stay safe, and I'll see you again at Ichiraku Ramen.